we know these people. And I mean, Eamon did his time, he paid his debt to society. Why would we talk about the present record? I mean, that doesn't make sense. So I move, we just adopt the place.
Okay, well, let's hear from them first.
Once we
Go through the application, but so we could just, is everybody in concurrence? We just vote for the slate of officer or vacancies? Okay. All right, so first one up is Jackie. Are you with us, Jackie?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, so many of you that have been at the round table for a while know that the industrial seat has been held by a tri-state staff member, I think since the inception of the Basin Roundtables. In the past, we've had the plant managers do that because they've been local, but we have lost Rich Thompson, who was our most recent staff member serving on the roundtable. And since he's no longer employed with Tri-State, you are getting me as an applicant. As I wrote in my letter, I've been working in water policy and projects for quite some time, I think 15 or so years. I've had some experience on the Basin Roundtable, and my term with the CWCB will be up in January, will be my last meeting. So I'll no longer be serving as your director for the Yampa White Green there. And if you'd like, I would be interested in representing industry on the roundtable. Tri-State's water rights are significant. I think everybody knows that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I don't know that you didn't need to hear me talk anymore. But I can for a long time if you want.
How long have you been on the round table, Jackie? When you first started, what year did you come on board?
I think I've 11 years.
11 years, okay. Does anybody have any questions for Jackie? She's been on the board a long time. She was our chairman for several 2 4-year terms, so. Hearing
And
Oh.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think we're good, Jackie. Is anybody online got a question for Jackie or? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Jackie. So let's go to Tim Sullivan. Tim's in the room with us.
Thank you, Steve. I'm Tim Sullivan. I work for the Yampa Valley Sustainability Council. I run our resilient land and water program there. In that role, I'm a terrestrial ecologist by training, and so I think a lot about forests, but I've worked quite a bit on water issues in the context of the integrated water management plan. I was on the riparian working group from the technical committee there. I continue to be engaged with some of the other nonprofits in environmental groups in the Yampa Valley, working on implementation of the projects that we've identified in the IWG. I also serve on the steering committee of the Headwaters of the Colorado project with David and others from the Little Snake River as well, representing environmental interests on that group, thinking about watershed health, for particularly the Elk, the Little Snake, and Elk Bend Creek. So I engage quite a bit on Yampa River issues. I've worked on water issues for a long time in my career, at least 20 years. I've done most of that with the Nature Conservancy, and a lot of that working on big river issues, Colorado River conservation projects. So, and I also was Madison Bucksworthy supervisor, so I did work with her quite a bit on her role in representing environmental interests on the round table before she went off to graduate school. happy to answer any more questions about my interest or background.
Does anybody in the room have any questions for Tim? Anybody online have any questions for Tim? Ken Britter?
I just wanted to offer that I work closely with Tim on the Headwaters Steering Committee, and he's a very valuable asset. His knowledge of forest health and water issues is really important to the success of the group, and I'm really actually thrilled to see him step up and apply for this environmental seat, a very important seat on our roundtable board.
Yeah, so I would say on that, I was on the YWG project, maybe not as on as many subcommittees as Tim was, but I worked with Tim on multiple subcommittees and almost all the general meetings, and I thought Tim did a great job in explaining the issues that he was concerned with and solutions on those. So I'll just echo what Ken said, that I think Tim would be a good addition to the environmental seat. So, any questions? Last chance. Okay, so we have, thanks, Tim. So we have 2 out of basin seats. We have 3. Jonathan Ballard sits in one of them. And we have 2 vacancies. So, Eamon has applied. Would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Hi, I'm Eamon O'Toole. I live in the Little Snake River Valley. Our ranch headquarters is about 25 miles east of Bags, up by Battle Mountain. And we irrigate about 900 acres with flood irrigation and with pivots. And I am currently the chair of the Little Snake River Conservancy District, as well as recently appointed to the Family Farm Alliance Board. So, and as my late father said, we raise cattle, sheep, horses, dogs, and children on that ranch. That's about all I have. Thanks.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Eamon?
I would just like to throw in that Eamon has generously agreed to let us use his yearlings for the Steamboat Dog Trial, which is at the rodeo grounds this Saturday and Sunday in Steamboat. Benefit for youth agriculture in Rock County. Thanks, Eamon.
I think he'll be a good addition to the team.
Okay. Anybody online have a question or a comment on Eamon? Ken?
Well, we need to remember that the Little Snake is actually about 1/3 of the water in the Yampa River, and representation from that group, having Eamon and Jonathan Bowler are really significant additions to our roundtable, and I'm really happy to see Eamon put his hat in the ring. Thank you, Eamon.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, so I would entertain a motion for electing Jackie Brown to the industrial seat, electing Tim Sullivan to the environmental seat, and Eamon O'Toole to the one of the 2 out of basin seats.
Second.
Okay. Who seconded? Who seconded? Frank? Okay. Did you get the motion in the second? Okay. So I have a motion in a second. Any other discussion? Your hand's still up, Ken?
Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, well, hearing none, I have a motion on the floor to accept the slate of the motion. All in favor of adding Jackie and Tim and Eamon to seats on the Ample White Crane Roundtable, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations, Jackie and Tim and Eamon. Okay. We go back to the. Well, I have an agenda. You don't have to go back to that, Sally. I've got one.
Right at the top.
Huh? Oh, there we go.
Hey, Steve, I just have a question. These three people now can vote this evening, correct?
Jackie and Tim.
Yep.
Can vote. Eamon's you're in a non-voting seat because it's out of base. But yes, they can.
Great.
And now they can be added to our roll call as members, voting members. Kristen. Okay, so, that moves us down to number 5, review and approve the July 10, 2024 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read through those? They've been on the website as draft. Kelly?
So I think we could change my name in this set of minutes as well.
Oh, it wasn't Smithfield? I thought
Oh, okay, I had, sorry.
I changed that, but maybe I only took 3 times, right?
I'm a little slow too. It's okay.
3 times or 3 years?
I also got a bonus letter in my name, so if you don't mind just checking that, so.
Oh, you don't have a J
You don't have 2 J's. No, I got 2 J's, no, it's one. Okay, just the one at the beginning.
With that, I would move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Kelly and a second by Andy. Any further discussion? Anybody else's name isn't spelled correctly? Anybody online have a question? Okay, hearing none. Have a motion on the floor. All in favor of accepting the minutes with the 2 corrections, one to Callie's name, one to Sonia's name. As commented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay? Okay. It's unanimous. Okay, so that takes us down to item number 6. Public comment. Did we get any public comment through the website that we're aware of? We did not. Is there anybody in the room that would like to say anything during the public comment section of this meeting? Hearing none, is anybody online like to make a comment in the public comment section of this meeting? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Now I'd like to move to agenda item number 8, which is Water Commissioners Corner. Amy, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen.
Let me stop sharing.
Oh. Thank you. And I just want to say a huge thank you for accommodating my schedule. It's one of those, I would say it's one of those weeks that the travel schedule is just a bit wild, but it's just one of those months when the travel schedule is a little bit wild. So there is a lot going on right now, and I just appreciate you guys making it work. Oh, and I can share my screen now. So I'm gonna do that. All right. So yeah, thanks again so much for having me. I'm gonna just give a few kind of standard updates today, but I also know that there was a request from Steve, and I talked to Jeff a bit about some particular areas that they thought it would be helpful to discuss. So I'm gonna go over standard updates and a few other things in addition to that. So the first thing I want to start with is just a really quick update on the post 2026, the negotiations for post 2026 operations of Powell and Mead. I know it can feel like there's not a lot going on right now, but I assure you that there is stuff happening. And I've updated our timeline here just to give you a sense of where we are in the process and what's going on. So, back in March, we submitted our alternative. And the bookends of this are kind of that when the NEPA process started, and 2026 when the 2007 guidelines currently governing operations of Pelham Mead expire. So we're sandwiched in the middle of that right now. And what's happening is Reclamation is developing a range of alternatives. They're analyzing the alternatives that have been submitted. And so we're kind of waiting on more input and information from them based on that process. Meanwhile, the basin states, the principals are continuing to meet and to try to find some common areas of understanding, but also making sure, the process of making sure that we fully understand the full implications of the alternatives that have been submitted, what those modeled impacts actually look like. That's really important too. So we're continuing those discussions, or Commissioner Mitchell's continuing those discussions with her counterparts in the other basin states. So as that is all going on, we're continuing operations as normal, our regularly scheduled programming under the 2007 guidelines and the supplemental EIS that governs some provisions of those guidelines through 2026. So that brings us to what always happens in August, which is there's the Reclamation 24-month study that sets operations for the following year. So I'm going to go over this pretty briefly today, but I do want to highlight that we're going to have a deeper dive into the 24-month study that Michelle Garrison on my team will provide at the board meeting, the CWCB board meeting. So if you want to dig deeper, definitely tune into that and listen to Michelle's update. She's great at really getting into the technical nitty-gritty on all this. But high level, inflow into Powell so far has been about 83% of normal. Somewhat normal snowpack and normal soil moisture. Powell right now is sitting around 40% full. And as you guys are aware, the way that Powell and Mead operations work under the 07 guidelines is you look at projections for Powell and Mead elevations in August of the 24-month study. Based on those projections, the operations are set for the following year. So what we are looking at for next year is a fixed release from Lake Powell of 7.48 million acre feet. That comes from I have my yellow box in the wrong place, so please ignore that. It should be on the mid-elevation balancing tier. I'm sorry, mid-elevation release tier, not balancing tier. I was looking at my incorrectly placed yellow box. So ignore that, look at the text. We have a fixed release of 7.48 million acre feet. So that is what happens in the mid-elevation release tier when Lake Mead is projected to be below 1025. So that is where we are right going forward in the water year 2025. The other thing that we now know is that Lake Mead will operate in a tier 1 shortage condition. That falls mostly on Arizona. And this is a little box here that shows the various shortage tiers that the lower basin states in Mexico also face under the 07 guidelines and also the drought contingency plan. So one thing that has been a consistent issue or question or reoccurring thing that has happened through the course of the 07 guidelines is sometimes you see the lower basin states in a shortage, but they are taking intentionally created surplus out of Lake Mead to kind of make up for that shortfall that they might be facing. So yet to be seen how that is actually going to play out. But, you know, when you see the confusion around, well, apparently they're in a shortage, but they're still getting X amount of water delivered. It's sometimes because they're relying on that ICS, that intentionally created surplus that they had banked in Lake Mead previous years. So it will be important to see how that all plays out. And has been a continuing saga, I will say, throughout the course of the 07 guidelines, and something that we have been learning from, and will certainly influence and have influenced our positions in the post 2026 negotiations. So again, apologies for that misplaced yellow box. I'll fix that. Happy to send these slides around if anyone wants them. But again, please tune in to Michelle's update on the full update on the 24-month study at the board meeting if you want to listen into that. Another update I wanted to give, you know, I think I've talked to you guys about this before, at least some of you. You know, Reclamation released their consumptive uses and losses report in June. There is still, you know, some information missing, but we have a better sense now of what lower basin tributary use is looking like. So we, along with that information coming out, have also gotten a lot of questions about the infographics that we have used to show consumptive uses and losses. You know, again, this is where you see a lot of information out in the media about, well, lower basin is saying that they used, you know, 6.5 million acre feet this last, or whatever it is. And the confusion comes because there are a lot of different ways to calculate consumptive uses and losses. And also another preview for a board meeting, Brian McPherson on my team is going to be giving a deeper dive into the various methodologies for consumptive uses and losses reporting. A good thing to kind of know about so that you can interpret better what is, you know, coming at you in the media and elsewhere on this. But this is what we did with this to get back to this graphic that you're seeing here. First of all, we looked at a 20-year period, and we also broke it down by main stem uses, tributary uses, and evaporation and transit losses. And what that clarifies is when you hear, you know, that, well, we're only using 6.5 or whatever it is from the main stem, that is their decree accounting in Arizona v. California. That specifically only looks at their main stem uses. So instead of showing a bar that just shows all of them together, we thought it would be useful to show exactly what the main stem uses are relative to the tributary uses, and then you have the evaporation and transit losses as well. So we're showing all of those in different colors for the lower basin in that blue line. Because of some differences in how we calculate consumptive uses in the upper basin, we have all of ours together. So main stem, transit loss and evaporation and tributaries in the yellow bars for the upper basin. So just wanted to highlight this. We are still working on, Michael Sakis is working on making this even prettier than it is and getting it ready to put on our website. So this isn't out and official yet, but it should be soon. So the other reason I wanted to highlight this is that there's a lot of conflicting information, as I alluded to, about consumptive uses and losses. And sometimes that comes from the decree accounting in the lower basin, but there is also, I think, what I would characterize as some misinformation about upper basin water use. And do we actually use less water in dry years? Things like that. And we have been working really hard with Reclamation to make sure that their consumptive uses and losses analysis is correct, that it actually reflects hydrologic realities, that hydrologic shortage is included in that they are actually considering what would happen if we had a full supply in the upper basin. And there's a lot that goes into that, but suffice it to say that we are working to make sure that Reclamation's numbers are right. They've been working great with us, and so we feel pretty good about the numbers that we have here, that they accurately reflect what's happening in the upper basin. And again, this is tales all the time, I say this every time, but you see the variability that we do take shortages in dry years, which on the ground, people who use water in Colorado know. So that is all to say, we're really upping our game on consumptive use information. Should have this out soon. If you have any questions about it, please get in touch. And again, just a pitch to listen in to the board meeting when we'll be giving a fuller kind of perspective on the various ways that consumptive uses and losses are analyzed. And, you know, I guess one other thing I want to say on this is that it's really critical when you're looking at consumptive uses and losses, upper basin relative to lower basin, that you go back to the 1922 compact. there are a lot of different ways that you can calculate different things. A lot of different ways you can calculate main stem uses or, whatever it is. The Colorado River Compact of 1922 clearly states that apportionments are made from the Colorado River system, and the system includes main stem uses and tributary uses, all uses of the river. So that's why we think it's important to give this full perspective of what's being used. And it's an apples to apples comparison, upper basin to lower basin, what we're using from all those sources. So I'm going to step off that soapbox and get on a different one now. I talked I emailed with Steve and talked to Jeff a little bit about an article that has recently come out about this quote unquote free river loophole concept that, people are being allowed to use the free river in Colorado. And this, if this quote unquote loophole could be resolved, that we would be providing more water to Powell. And, there's a lot there. So I'd encourage you to give it a look if you feel so inclined. But what I want to do today is just share with you some of our perspectives on this article and some of the things that we think are not adequately captured here. The first one is this idea, this assumption that the upper division states are overusing our compact apportionment in some way. That's not true. We just need to go back to the previous slide to show you that that's not the case, and that's really not where the issue lies. But also this idea that there's a loophole that needs to be fixed. It's not like everyone in Colorado, and I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir, but people aren't just allowed to go and use water. There has to be a beneficial use there. There are limits on that. There are requirements on that. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the Colorado Constitution provides for the right to use unappropriated waters, as long as you're subject to that beneficial use requirement, of course. And the other thing is, they really overestimated the impact that free river use would have, or clearing that up in some way, however they define it, would have at Powell. The impacts would be very, very, very small. And we just want to, make sure that folks kind of understand that the numbers they have, we're pretty unclear on where these numbers come from, but they really don't match the reality of, in a lot of respects, is what I'll say. So those are our perspectives on this. I am talking about it because I know it's getting a lot of airtime. I know it's out in the national media, and I know that people are asking about it. So these are kind of our high level concerns about it. But I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there for now. But here's another kind of public information effort we're working on, which is showing, just how much water is actually flowing out of our state on an annual basis. This is an average, 9.3 million acre feet. And, on the other side of this infographic, it shows some of the things that we do in the state to, improve water efficiency, to conserve water, but also just to live within the means of what the river provides. The hydrologic shortage that we take, which is on average 1.3 million acre feet in the upper basin, 600,000 acre feet a year in Colorado on average. Some years are more than that, some years are less than that. But we're really trying to make sure that folks understand, we use water pretty wisely here. We have an entire legal framework that is set up to help us do that. It's not easy. It's frequently painful. Again, I know I've said this all to you before, but this Free River article, some of the confusion around consumptive uses, we just think it's really important to continue to be clear about this. So that's why we're putting together these new infographics, trying to get the message out. But if there are other ways that we can be effective, because sometimes it feels like we're not with all this information out there, let us know. Like I would love to know how to better get some of this messaging out there that really reflects the reality of water use in our state. Finally, just a couple more updates. This isn't so much of an update. I think we talked about this last time, and not a lot has changed, but System Conservation Pilot Program, there is currently legislation pending to reauthorize SCPP through 2026. And I'll just be honest, we've heard a lot of concerns from water users across the state, and we are really doing our best to make sure that we understand those concerns, and that whatever comes next, we are making the right decision, frankly, that we are not you know, walking into the same situations or issues that we've had in the past. So really trying to make sure that we understand the things that have gone wrong, the things that have gone well. We don't know if there's going to be an SCPP next year or this year. That's the truth. We don't know what's going to happen. But we just want to make sure that we're understanding the situation fully. So appreciate those who have helped us with that. And if you have information or input that you'd like to share, please reach out. So one last thing, and I think you all know about this, but just wanted to highlight a couple of these funding opportunities from the Bureau of Reclamation. This is, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act funding, reclamation, and if you recall, there were actually 3 buckets of funding that were focused on the Colorado River Basin. The first was for temporary voluntary compensated reductions in consumptive use that has been used to fund System Conservation Pilot Program. Bucket 2, if you read just the text of the Inflation Reduction Act, was for durable water conservation projects. Bucket 3 was for environmental and ecosystem projects. So the way Reclamation has kind of handled this is by combining those last 2 buckets of funding into this you know, bucket 2, I guess, but separating it out into bucket 2E, which is for environmental and ecosystem projects. That request for applications is currently open through October 14th. And then we anticipate that later this fall, there will be another RFP for bucket 2W, which is more focused on water conservation efforts. So no RFP out yet on that. We anticipate there will be more information coming soon, but in the meantime, you know, if you have a bucket or an environmental ecosystem project, again, the deadline for that is October 14th. I can drop a link to Reclamation's website where you can get more information. And the state will be doing a red flag review on that. So Reclamation is making the decision about what projects to fund, but each upper division state will do a red flag review for projects within its borders. So what that'll look like in Colorado is really just, does it comply with state law? What are the water rights issues? And is there a potential to cause injury? So that's what we'll be focused on. We'll be coordinating very closely with the Division of Water Resources on that review. So yeah, I think that's all I have today. I know that was a lot of information. I will drop a link to Reclamation's website for B2E in the chat. I will correct my first slide. We'll be happy to provide these if you guys want them, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Amy? Here in the room? Andy?
Amy, this is Andy Rossi, and any questions about that red flag review? Is the Commissioner's office, your office, going to be performing those red flag reviews with DWR?
Yeah, so that will be, I'm technically the person listed in Reclamation's, on Reclamation's website as a point person for the state red flag review. But the way that I see that, it really needs to be done in close coordination with DWR. So it, you know, will be more of a kind of water rights, you know, potential for injury review, which DWR will be closely involved with.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else in the room have a question? Eamon?
Are there multiple tributaries doing Free River projects, or is it just Little Snake River?
To my knowledge, it's just Little Snake.
Thanks.
Anyone in the room? Anyone online? Have a question for Amy? I don't see any, Amy. Oh, hang on, Kelly.
A little slow. Callie Switchfield, Amy, hi. At our Big River Committee, we were talking about the information that's come out on the, you know, misinformation from the lower basin or from the group. And discussing, okay, so what can we do to be proactive and so forth? And it looks like you're trying to do that. And as you are probably struggling the same way as all the rest of us about, we have this information, where and how do we get it out to people? And I think it was Ken that was mentioning earlier about how there are firms out there that can help us with those kinds of things. Wondering if that's a direction that you might be going, or are you just trying to push it out wherever you can, or is there a targeted direction way that you're trying to get it out to the public and to the news media primarily?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will say that Michael Sakis on our team has just been an incredible addition and has helped us, first of all, create the resources, and we've been really focused on that. But I think, we are going to be working to getting that to a broader audience. I can't say exactly what that will look like, but it's a known issue and a known, thing that I think all the upper division states have now recognized we need to work on. I think for a while it's been, I'll just be honest, I think Colorado's been really leading that charge in a lot of ways. And part of it is we just have more staff. We just recently got more staff to help with things like this. But I think that what we will, be seeing in the future is a more coordinated effort on the part of the upper division states together to get some of this messaging out. So I can't tell you exactly what that will look like, but stay tuned.
Great, thank you.
Ken has his hand up.
Yeah, I see it. Ken?
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Sally was talking about. Here in about a little less than 2 months, we're going to have a lot of the top marketing firms in the country that have been working on elections available to help assist with the messaging for Colorado and for the upper basin states. It does seem that this will go on. In fact, it will probably intensify between now and when the Bureau of Reclamation makes their final decision. But there, I believe, along with the legal negotiations that you're doing, is a battle for the public opinion. And we need to be proactive on that and try to tell our own story as opposed to responding to articles like the one in Newsweek that are wholly inaccurate. And hopefully, Jason Olin and our Attorney General are taking advantage of an opportunity to confer with them along with you and your team to make sure that they better understand the nuances of water law and why their article needs to not only be amended, but they should be sure to check with us to proof their products in the future prior to embarrassing themselves the way they have. That's all. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions for you, Amy, so thank you for your update. Enjoy your
Thanks for
travel.
having
Okay,
Good luck.
now we'll move back to item 7, CWCB update. Jeff Rodriguez.
Can you give me permission to share screen?
You all set?
Should be good to go, Jeff.
Alrighty. So as Amy said, kind of a lot's happening at CWCB right now. So I've got some updates for you. Wanted to start with some things that I've said in the past as just kind of reminders, but the CWCB guide is out in draft form on engagecwcb.org. Our plan is to finalize the draft this fall and present a final copy to the board at the November board meeting. So right now it's open for everyone to read and give us comments and feedback on. Probably need to see those comments and questions submitted by November 1st for us to be able to incorporate those into a final draft that we submit to the board in November. Also wanted to mention the C9 Summit. It's fast approaching. I know many of you have already signed up to attend. If you're interested in attending, we still have some space available, so you can register now. That little QR code in the corner will take you right to the registration site. The 3 tours that we have organized on the 1st are full, but there is a wait list available if you're interested in joining one of those. You can see the agenda that's posted on Engage CWCB. It's shaping up to be a really great event on the 2nd. Also, just wanted to mention, we have some funding available to reimburse roundtable members or frequent attendees or folks that are interested in representing the basin at C9. So up to 10 of those people can apply for reimbursement. If you're interested in a reimbursement request, just reach out to me directly and I can get you all squared away. That reimbursement's for lodging and mileage, so hopefully that makes attending the C9 a little bit easier for folks. I know it's sort of a long drive from the Yampa Basin to Crested Butte, but hopefully that helps out. Also wanted to mention a couple grant programs that are open right now. First, the Colorado Ag Water Alliance's Drought Resiliency Grant Program. They're accepting applications right now until December 13th is the deadline for those. This roundtable has funded that in the past through WSRF funds, and I know they're looking for folks in the basin to apply. Just a reminder, this program really focuses on developing effective strategies for agricultural water users and managers to adapt to reduced water supplies. Successful projects kind of test concepts, collect data, and demonstrate the ability to decrease water use or increase long-term resiliency on farms and ranches in the state. You can get that information either from the CAWA website or also from the Engage CWCB website for this program. This grant program is really helping support one of the agency actions around innovation, kind of creating innovation challenges for all the sectors, help launch this project with CAWA to kind of do some of that work in the ag sector. So excited about this program and just wanted to make a plug for it. Also wanted to mention the turf replacement grant program. That program is also open, accepting applications right now through October 31st. And there are some revised criteria and guidelines for this program that the board approved in July, posted on the webpage. So make sure to take a look at those if you're interested in applying for this program. You can apply for it the same way you apply for all CWCB funding opportunities right through the grants and loans portal. Also wanted to mention an effort we are launching to create some new infographics for the basins that kind of have a standard branding for all the basins. These will be loosely based on some infographics that the Arkansas Basin Roundtable and the South Platte Basin Roundtable are already using, but these will be informed by the water plan and the BIPs and specific to each basin. The reason I'm mentioning it is we've recently got some feedback from a PEPO statewide grant where they interviewed PEPO coordinators and roundtable chairs on effective communication strategies through the PEPO program, and a lot of PEPO coordinators identified a need for this. And we've been thinking about doing this for a while. And so we're launching that effort. The contractor will be at the C9 Summit, and we'll send out some more information to PEPO coordinators and roundtable chairs on this effort here in the near future. So just wanted to kind of give you all a heads up to that and be on the lookout for an email about that. Couple other reminders for you all. We have a WSRF deadline coming up October 1st. And then a water plan grant and PEPO statewide grant deadline December 1st. I know that seems like a long way out right now here in the second week of September, but when you're working on a grant application, that deadline approaches really fast. So just wanted to make a plug for it now and tell you to reach out to Ashley Garrison if you're working on an application. She can help you kind of work through the criteria and guidelines and submit your most competitive application. That December funding round is often really competitive, so reaching out to CWCB staff early and often helps. Also wanted to mention the federal technical assistance and local capacity funding and the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program. I know you're probably tired of me groaning on about these two programs. This is probably your last notice of these two programs because they are coming to a close here with funding. That funding's tied to the state's ARPA funding, so they need to be contracted by the end of this year. So end of December 2024. So the deadline for the federal technical assistance program is October 15th. And then the deadline for wildfire ready watershed applications is September 30th. I know those programs are taking a little bit longer for folks to get under contract. We're working as hard as we can to make those turn around real fast so we can meet that deadline. But just wanted to make a plug. If you're still thinking about those programs, reach out to Michael Reagan or Chris Sturm and his team to get on their radar so they can, kind of usher that process along. I'll let Director Brown mention the board meeting, although Amy already mentioned it a bunch of times. Great opportunity to hear some updates from other CWCB staff and kind of find out what's going around. A lot of grant applications this month. And then two other things I wanted to make a plug for. The Colorado River webinar series is switching to an every other month webinar, with the next one being October 17th. And then the water conditions monitoring program or committee meetings, that next one's September 24th. If you're interested in precipitation indicators, drought, and all of those things, that's a really great meeting to tune into. Both of those are recorded and on the CWCB YouTube page too, if you can't make the actual meeting, but are still interested in the information. I think that's all I've got. I'll turn it over to Director Brown, or take questions right now, but I'll be around all night.
Hey Jeff, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You're making me feel like I forgot something.
No, your volume cut out when you talked about under the PEPO infographics, talking about launching a new effort and based on BIPs and water plan grant. We didn't hear any of that. If you could maybe briefly.
You didn't hear any of that or anything from there on?
No, just. No, we heard about the contractor will be at C9.
Okay.
Just didn't hear those first two items.
Okay, yeah, so I just mentioned that we got some feedback from a PEPO statewide grant where they were interviewing PEPO basin coordinators and basin roundtable chairs, and some of the IBCC PEPO subcommittee, talking about really effective strategies for education that PEPO coordinators are kind of employing around the state. And one thing that came up is kind of resources and consistent resources for consistent messaging. So we've been thinking about creating some infographics for PEPO folks to utilize. And so we're launching this effort. A couple basins already have infographics that they use. So this will kind of be loosely based on those, but will be informed by the water plan and the BIPs. And that contractor that's going to be working with us on this project is going to be at the C9 Summit. So, welcome to go up to them and talk to them about what that might look like. And we will get an email out to the chairs and the PEPO committees and coordinators with more information about what those might look like. It'll be probably like a one pager or a front and back or something like that. But information from the BIPs and the water plan.
And hey Jeff, we had a question that came up during our PEPO meeting today, and the question was because of the delayed rollout of the $25,000 PEPO grants last year. Are we given additional time this fall to spend that money because of how late that was rolling out?
Yeah. So the yes, whenever your contracting date was, you have a whole year to spend that money. And then I know that the PEPO grants that were submitted in June, typically grants submitted at that June 1st deadline are heard at the September board meeting. The amount of the PEPO grant makes it a director's report item, and our CWCB director reviews and approves kind of all of those directors' items in the lead up to the board meeting. So you probably will see a notice to proceed or a notice of award here maybe by the end of this week, but probably sometime next week or early the week after. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. And then it might take a little bit of maneuvering, just making sure, keeping track of what you're spending out of the last grant versus, if you're also starting this grant at the same time. But yeah, you have, I think all of those PEPO grants go through October, or even some of them even later than that.
Okay, we kind of heard maybe ours was November. Could you look up our date and just send me an email on
Yeah.
that would be great. Thank you. Any questions for Jeff here in the room? Online? Okay, thank you, Jeff. Jackie, are you ready? Oh, wait, hey, hang on, Ken.
We just wanted to take a moment to thank Jeff for all of the work and assistance from the Colorado Water Conservation Board staff to set up the C9 Summit and put together all the content. It's a lot of work. It's very much appreciated, and we're looking forward to attending. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Okay, Jackie, are you ready?
I'm ready. So our September meeting is in Monte Vista down in the San Luis Valley this round. And it's our water plan grant meeting. So we actually, I guess we're able to shave the meeting down, the formal board meeting, to one day, which is on Wednesday, and then finance committee is on Tuesday. So, I'm not sure how many of you guys have watched the finance committee meetings in the past, but they're pretty interesting. Lots of stuff going on with that. So, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you're more than welcome to join us. There is a link for the YouTube on that. So we'll talk about, I think one of the highlights for me since being on the board through the water plan update is operational planning. So we're going to talk about how the board can, this board, future boards, how they can prioritize projects for funding. And it's tricky because almost all of our funding buckets were legislatively declared. And so we can't change, what you can do within those funding buckets, but we're hoping that we can, as a board, talk about types of projects that we'd like to see responses on. And so that could, be technologies, it could be agricultural operational techniques that we haven't seen before. I don't know what each board each year could determine what that looks like. So we're just going to have that conversation at the finance committee meeting, which I think will be interesting. And I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I think it'll be good conversation. So then the next day is water plan grants, and that will take up the entire day. Besides, we do have a little bit of work to do with Colorado River Basin updates, executive committee meeting or sorry, executive session and some finance water project loans to consider as well. So just so you guys know, the few grants that we have up are the Bear River Reservoir Company has a Stillwater Reservoir downstream blanket drain on the and the Colorado Ag Water Alliance has an Upper Yampa Reservoir Rehabilitation Phase 1 project. So these all go through staff recommendation, staff approval and, well, not approval, but review, and then they bring a recommendation to the board. So we'll be looking at those couple things, and then also going on a tour down in the San Luis Valley. So yeah, I think everybody else has kind of hit on the highlights, and yeah, thanks for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take anything back to the meeting that you'd like me to share with the board.
Anybody here in the room have anything for Jackie, a question or comment? Anybody online have a question or a comment for Jackie? Kim?
Thank you. Jackie, I just think that we all collectively would really like to thank you for an amazing last almost 6 years of service on the Colorado Water Conservation Board, and you've been a really powerful voice and a very active member, and your representation of the basin is very much appreciated. Thank you for making that sacrifice for us. It's great to have you back on the board.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it. It's been an honor. Still have 3 more meetings, so not quite done yet, but it's crazy when you serve on a board so long that your child is in kindergarten and then he will be going into high school when you're done. So how the time passes that quickly, I don't know, but here we are.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. Thanks for your service on that board. Good luck with 3 more meetings. Okay, so that brings us to item number 9, presentations. Andy?
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Get going. While we're doing this, I'll do a little preamble, let you all know. Steve hit me up for this presentation 42 hours ago, so with that, I'll see if I can
I was gonna wait.
make a fairly good cohesive presentation. And what I'm gonna talk about is a little bit of what Jeff Rodriguez just mentioned, the Wildfire Ready Watersheds project on the Bear River. I've given a number of talks on this, and we have some current events that are just going on in the upper basin around wildfire, post-wildfire conditions, which I'm gonna get into. So I took sort of 3 different presentations and jammed them all together. So it's a little chaotic, but I think I'm gonna cover some good ground a little bit for everybody to get interested here. So if it's a little not quite as cohesive as you might expect, there's a reason for that. So without further ado, we've been working a lot in the upper basin, looking at risks to the hydrologic production of the upper basin. You know, where's the water coming from? What can we do to sustain the hydrographs that have been really driving this productive landscape for us? And one of the places we looked into is wildfire risk of some of the headwaters areas. And specifically, we're going to talk about here first is the Bear River section of the upper basin. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the conditions we're seeing in the Muddy Slide burn scar post wildfire. We're going to get to that. That's sort of a recent development that we're just wading into now. So here's what we did. We took advantage of the Wildfire Ready Action Plan program through the CWCB, and they are very generous. And the total cost of that analysis was around $150,000. CWCB came through with just over $130,000 in grant funding for that analysis, and the remainder is made up by Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District. And really what this is the opportunity to go into a watershed and evaluate the potential risk to wildfire, and then think about what a post-wildfire condition in that landscape would look like, and think specifically about the risks to water resources infrastructure in a post-wildfire condition. So that's the main drive here. Now, we also were very lucky in the co-swap program, which is also under DNR. They were very generous and awarded us close to $1 million to use in the Bear River project area directly for hazardous fuels mitigation projects. So all that money, plus about $400,000 from the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District, will go directly to on-the-ground mitigation efforts. So those two projects are complementary and they're running simultaneously right now. We're almost done with the analysis part. That's been going really great. We're all the way through our field season. We expect all that analysis and the study to be done this fall. On hazardous fuels reduction, as you're going to see, a lot of the area that we're going to be working in is national forest. And we're also working on NEPA authorization for those activities. And it looks like we're well on our way there. We should be in good order to submit the full proposed action to them within a week or 2 years. So these are two parallel projects that are complementary that are going forward. And really the aim is to use the analysis to inform what we're going to do on the ground in the future. And there's a whole nother section of mitigation possibilities that don't have anything to do with vegetation treatments that I'm also going to get into here. And it's going to come to light, I think, when we talk about some current events. Okay, so if you're really talking about, what is the motivation for a water district to get into this sort of wildfire risk? Here's a line from a study that came out of the Cameron Peak Fire. This is a study that was just released in March of 23. And if you just focus on the red text there, basically what they found was a burn site accumulated less snow than unburned. Makes sense, that's of concern. And then the largest snowpack changes occurred in the spring when snow in the burn site melted up to 144% faster. That's a big concern to water providers right now. So what we're saying is that the post-wildfire condition could be detrimental to just the fundamental operations of water supply infrastructure. So that's just a little bit of one of the motivations of why we got into this is these kinds of potential dynamics. So what did we do? We focused our attention on where the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District has some significant water supply infrastructure, and we focused on the area in the upper basin that is the densest area of irrigated agriculture. The Bear River up to sort of orient you in the upper right side of the screen there is the town of Yampa. And then we're running upstream down to the left all the way up to the flat tops, the Devil's Causeway area. Headwaters of the Yampa there. You can see there, Stillwater Reservoir is at the top there. That is private reservoir, irrigation reservoir. Number 2 there is Bear Lake. That's a CPW recreational facility. And number 3 there is Yampola Reservoir, owned and operated by Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District. 90% irrigation water deliveries out of that. There's other natural lakes and smaller reservoirs in the area. But it's not a huge place. It's about 33,000 total acres. And when you start thinking about what can you do to maybe mitigate some of the risk for wildfire hazard, or think about a post-wildfire condition for that whole area, it's really overwhelming, not just from a size standpoint, but the reason why I like to put this up, you can see the mosaic of different sort of regulatory regimes we might have to navigate to do anything up there. The green part is all wilderness, can't do anything there. You can see there's a narrow corridor that isn't in wilderness right around sort of the main access road. And the reservoirs, we've got some different degrees of roadless areas up there. And then the bottom half of the area of interest is all on private land. So then we're into private land issues. So there's a little bit of everything here for us to navigate. to be able to get our act together, we go out and do something on the ground, actually. So what I immediately start to do in working with our consultant, we start dividing these things up, because I'm a big proponent of the old adage that you shouldn't work on a basin you haven't walked across. You need to know exactly what the conditions on the ground are, but okay, so say I start dividing this up, we can divide it up in two, we got about 16,000 acres each. And then if we really want to narrow it down, we went smaller and we broke it up into 29 little sub basins that are about 1,100 acres. That's something I can sort of manage and get my mind around, trying to do maybe some targeted mitigation in each area. And so what we're trying to do is take a whole lot of data that goes into wildfire risk analysis, and many of you may have seen some of these maps before from the state or the Forest Service or something like that. And you're trying to apply these big statewide data sets to your local area. And so what that looks like is, if you look at the next one, is that picture. So this is one of the data sets that goes into the risk analysis. This is called the flame length, and this is from the statewide analysis. And I guarantee you, if I walk into a meeting for the Amcola Irrigators Association with this map to try to explain wildfire risk, they're all selling and they're moving to Minnesota because this looks like Armageddon, basically. So it's not that this is not good data, it's just at a scale that may not be appropriate for a local action or on the ground mitigation efforts. So one of the big parts of the wildfire ready analysis is to take these kinds of data sets and to modify them and to look at them in a finer scale and maybe try to reconcile them with the landscape, because this is what we're working with right here. This is a picture of the area, the upper part of the area we're working on. This is from 2011. I think it was just July. This is as good as it gets, right? Full reservoirs, everything's green. You got snow on the flat top still. This was an incredibly wet year. But what really comes out to me in this picture is the diversity of the landscape. That previous slide, this one, everything looks like it's going up in flames. This slide just sort of intuitively tells a little bit different picture, a different story. You can see there's parts where there's some open areas, there's some stands of aspens, you got some wetter areas, you got some really dense timber that might be a concern, but you can see in here, there's a lot of standing dead up there. So this is just, flame length is just one of the things that goes in there. You take all kinds of different data sets and put them in there. And what you can do is come up with a map like this. This is the actual flame length analysis, same scale for the area. And you can see now, after some more detailed work, your analysis of risk starts to sort of coincide a little bit more with the physical world that you know. You're not just taking these big data sets for what they look like on the screen. You're trying to make sure that they make sense in reality. So you can see we've got a lot of diversity from some of the risk factors there. And so after a lot of analysis, you come up with a map like this. This indeed is our ranking of the wildfire risk for those 29 different sub-watersheds. And you can see we've got a range up there by Yampa. You can see good news, low risk. That's nice. That's good for the town of Yampa. Just for fire, we're talking about. We're going to get into other risks in a second. But you can see sort of that area to the south of Yampolo and up around Bear Lake there. We've got a lot of risk. And these maps right here were reconciled with a bunch of site visits and a lot of hiking in the fields. It's a somewhat enjoyable thing to go check. So I did spend a lot of time out in the field with our consultants this year. And it seemed like each time we went out, we were trying to break a record for how far we could walk in the forest without actually touching the ground. There was so much deadfall against timber. It's pretty dramatic. Any of you who've been out there walking around in the high country off trail, you know this, you've experienced this. It's pretty, I don't know. For me, even though I knew it was there, once you actually try to move through it yourself, it really kind of hits home what's going on in the forest. So we come up with this map, and so now later this fall, we'll come up with some recommendations, not only for the pre-fire condition, what could we do to try to mitigate some of this? What do we need to keep an eye on, but also post-fire conditions. If some of these areas burn, what do we need to look out for? And that's where we get into some of the analysis, other products like this that come through the study. This is one of the, mapping products from the fluvial hazard zone maps. And this is from an area which is sort of, it's out onto private land now. We're a little bit lower down in the basin. And if you can kind of see what's going on in the middle of the screen is the main stem of the Bear River, the Yampa. And on either side, those gray dashed lines, at least that's what it is on my screen. Those are irrigation ditches, and you can see the irrigation acreage there. So this is, you know, active area, highly productive area. And then the areas with little red dots around them, those are areas where in a post-wildfire hydrology scenario. So once something burns and then you get a typical summer rainstorm on it, the increase in flows is dramatic. It's really sort of shocking when you first see what the numbers are, you know, far exceeding any sort of FEMA floodplain mapping magnitude. It's very extreme. And so what we have to start looking at is not just this extreme hydrology in a post-wildfire scenario, but also debris flows. So you can imagine sort of the area on the left of the screen where there's a red outline there. There's the Buckingham Mandel ditch and the Lancaster ditch. That's an area where we go out and look and we say if there's high flows coupled with the reflow, the main stem of the river could jump its bank easily. And then you've got a whole mess. If it jumps to the north, that's one mess you could have. It jumps to the south, that's a whole other mess you could have. You have a massive impact on the local area's agricultural production. So those are some things we're looking at. And what's the aim of this? For us to go out and fix it all right away? No, it's to come up with a prioritized list of potential actions we could have. And those potentials could be anything from working with the Routt County Road and Bridge Department and go out and maybe upgrade some of their culverts. Maybe just get them a design ready so that if we experience a post-wildfire condition, they've got the design on the shelf. And if something really bad happens, they don't have to spend 4 months, 5 months trying to come up with what to do there. We've already done the homework. We can put it in place quickly after the hazard has been experienced. So that's some of what we're doing there. That's sort of the range of the analysis. And this next slide, I've been recently putting up as well, illustrate, just hit home the idea that we're not going to be able to treat all of this. It's impossible. It's too big of a problem. We don't have the resources. It's not feasible to do it. This is from a paper that took sort of a very large look at a long history of wildfire mitigation practices all around the American West. And so it's just a good graphic to kind of explain it, the range of what you could do to try to mitigate wildfire hazards. So at the top, you've got an untreated forest on the left, and then when it burns, there's the picture of something that's very intense, and then the right post-wildfire condition. In that upper right corner, we've seen lots of pictures of it. We've seen it in Colorado over and over and over. This is what you don't want to have on a widespread basis, but you need to learn how to live with this for a big part of your forest. This is a risk that you may not ever be able to mitigate. So the question then comes up is, how do you live with that type of a post-fire condition? That's part of what goes into the analysis, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But then as you move down, we're starting to think about, well, what can you do? When you get to the bottom, you know, some mechanical thinning and then actually burning, and whether that's just burning slash piles or some other burning, that seems to be the best bang for your buck and can give you the best post-wildfire condition and also establish what you're looking for the longest period of time. So as we go through this and we try to finalize our recommendations for pre-wildfire risk management and then post-wildfire recommendations, we've got to consider all of these scenarios in there. It's not just one. If we get to go out and do everything we want on the whole landscape, that's not going to happen. We need to figure out how to live with all of these conditions. That's the reality of what we're talking about. So one of the things I want to hit home with is in a post-wildfire condition where you weren't able to do any mitigation ahead of time, this is what it looks like right here. Usually I've been putting up graphics from, say, the Cameron Peak Fire or something else where there was a huge debris flow. This is a debris flow that just happened a few weeks ago in the Scott Creek drainage, which is a sub drainage to the Muddy Slide burn scar in Morrison Creek. So across the valley from where I was just talking about. What we're looking at right here is the edge of private land looking upstream into what was Scott Creek into the national forest. This is the actual burn scar. We're a couple years past the active fire. And this is what can happen. This was not a huge rainstorm. I was actually out on a site visit up in the flat tops the day before this, and it was raining, but it wasn't anything extraordinary. It was a summer rainstorm that we get here. And this is the reality now that this agricultural producer is living with. The Scott Creek drainage is about 300 acres, 350 to give you a sense of what produced this. Upstream of here, all the way up to the top of the drainage was burned, for sure. There was no post-fire mitigation action here. It's not something that happened. And what you end up with is this sort of widespread, very extreme debris flow. This is looking downstream from the same spot, and I'm going to go through and kind of point out some details that might not jump out at you if you're not really thinking about it in the terms of a land use perspective. So over on the left, you can see a fence line there. It's got that white wildlife friendly top wire there. That's not the property line. That's a new fence in a post wildfire condition that the landowner is choosing not to put on their property line. Because if they move it all the way upstream, the property, I'm actually standing right on the property line. The chances of them losing that fence to another debris flow are pretty high. So why would you build a fence that's just gonna get destroyed again? So there's little things like that that come up as a real concern for an operator trying to get some work done there. So Scott Creek was on the right of this picture. Now it's over to the left. You can see a little bit there. And you can just see the size of debris that gets moved in one of these post-wildfire conditions. This is looking back upstream. This is what the rest of the sort of drainage looks like. Those two piles in the middle are some debris that the landowner had to move out of the way to get some flow back organized in Scott Creek so they could get some sort of irrigation going again. And Scott Creek is the main point of diversion for the irrigation for this operator. Without Scott Creek water, they're out of business irrigating. That's it. They're not on anything else. This is what one of their head gates now looks like. Scott Creek is kind of in the background. There's more Forest Service land where you can see the standing burnt stuff. The debris right in front of that set of 3 slide gates that have been cleaned out previously several times. And this was just sort of the remainder of the debris that was there. I was there a couple days after the rainstorm that had come down. So really their head gate is, questionable at best every time it rains if they can still use it. And you see they had to cut a new overflow channel off to the side there to get most of the debris, trying to get it away from their head gates, which is just blowing out. So basically what we see here is that in a post wildfire condition, without any sort of mitigation or debris flow consideration, the beneficial use of an absolute water right can be wiped out just from a summer rainstorm. This is another picture I put up that sort of encapsulates what could be a very frustrating post-wildfire condition for a landowner. Again, we're looking at the fence line running straight up through the middle of the picture. Brand new fence on the right is private land. On the left is United States Forest Service. Scott Creek is now coming right down the middle, right at us. This is just upstream of that set of head gates I showed you before. And so on the right, you can see there's sort of a willow channel coming down through there. That's where Scott Creek used to be. And because of the debris flow, changing the course of the water channel up higher, Scott Creek sort of went over on the other side of the fence line, and this portion is now entirely on national forest. And the debris of the new channel that's cutting through a place where there never was a channel is dumping all out onto private land now. So you've got a couple things going on. You've got a debris flow problem every time it rains that is very tricky to mitigate. and then all of a sudden you've got a brand new fence line that goes for quite a ways, that creek's not gonna stay where it is. And I would not wanna put money on how long that new fence is gonna last right where it is. So again, this is fundamental, sort of frustration for an operator that's there, what to do. So what can you do? If you were to reach out to the United States Forest Service in this situation, which the landowner did, the Forest Service is gonna be responsive, they're gonna come back, they're gonna talk to you. They'll treat you with respect, they'll do a survey, and the final answer they'll say is, we probably can't do anything for you. And there's some reasons for that, and one of them, to kind of summarize it, is that, the United States Forest Service cannot, enact mitigation efforts to protect private land. That's not part of their allowable actions. So it puts them in a very tough spot, no matter how sympathetic they are to your current situation. So that's one thing. So what do? How do you reach across that fence line to come up with authorization to go onto the national forest to try to mitigate a hazard that you're inheriting? Well, you gotta talk to the NRCS and the Colorado State Forest. These are two organizations that have, agreements to be able to reach across that fence line and do some work on the national forest to help mitigate this. And that's exactly what we did. We worked with Clinton Witten, whom you all know from NRCS, and we've applied to what's called the Emergency Watershed Protection Plan. It takes a government agency to apply to that. A private landowner can't do that, so you need a sponsoring agency. So Upper Yampa will do that. And we'll enter into that. NRCS will pay for 100% of the design of mitigation work. And I think up to 70% of construction costs, depending on what damage needs to be repaired. So there'll be two parts. We'll have to come up with a plan of what to do on the national forest side, and then a plan of what to do on the private land side. And on the private land side, we're gonna have two sort of thought processes there. What do we do in the short term to try to keep these folks able to irrigate and operate, knowing that there's gonna be a hazard that we can't completely take care of in the short term? And then think about long term, once things stabilize, how do we come back and put everything back for, say, the next 20 to 30 years? So it's complicated, and we're just getting into how to work on this. It's an unfortunate incident, but I think it's an incident that we're gonna see more and more of as wildfires impact the West Slope more. And if you want to know what this does beyond just this private landowner, this is a picture of Morrison Creek about 3 miles down the road, right after I left. So this is what Morrison Creek, and again, this is something that starts to, affect a larger watershed and river health concern. And also, these guys' neighbors are calling them up saying, hey, what are you guys doing in the creek out there? If they're digging again and muddying up our head gates and everything. No, this is just debris flow off of a burn scar, and it's propagating from way up, and this area is way, way up, the Lynx Pass area. This propagates all the way down to the main stem of the Yampa. So that is a lot of what we've been doing on the ground for the wildfire stuff. There's a lot more to come. So I'll stop there, and if anybody has any questions, you can hit me up now or give me a call on the phone, and I'm happy to talk about this. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Andy? Oh, go ahead.
No. Using prescribed burns, how realistic is that?
For an organization like Upper Yampa, not very realistic because of the inherent risk of doing that. You gotta be tooled up, you've gotta have a lot of infrastructure support to be able to do that, because if it goes wrong, that would be the worst possible thing ever. So, and I think you have to sort of adjust your thought process of what a prescribed burn is. We think about these big area burns where they go in, and some of them happened around here. One down along the Yampa many years ago doesn't go so well down there in the Cottonwood Bottom that we all see that got torched. That was a mistake. But you can also think of prescribed burns as burning slash piles after you go in and do the trimming.
So was the thinning and burning that you showed in the thing, was that more burning the slash?
The bottom one where they're thinning and then burning, yes, exactly. Not leaving that fuel on the ground is actually getting rid of it in place. Yep. And not doing a widespread burn, because one of the other things I'm really sensitive here is what's gonna be the effect on the snowpack. And if you have a widespread burn, you can end up having a very detrimental effect on your snowpack in the following subsequent years, so we want to avoid that as well. Yeah.
It seems like, you know, there's gonna have to be a ripping of the Band-Aid at some point, because we have millions and millions of acres across the west that are all dead. And, you know, if we have 144% loss up front, well, that's gonna have to happen concurrently over all these acres at some point. So how do you best manage all those acres to, you know, make a plan so that you're either cleaning it up and not leaving a big mess behind? And maybe logging is the best thing to happen. But what is the long-term plan of how we do that? Because at some point, this is gonna happen to the whole system. So we have to get past, you know, get over that there's gonna be a loss to the system and just make a plan to do it the best way possible.
Yeah, good question, and something, you know, I wrestle with myself, you know, when you look at the magnitude of the problem you're trying to tackle. That's one of the reasons why I kept it so small and manageable in my mind, because I think you can get out of control a little and you end up sort of getting that paralysis of it. It's too big.
I think you do the whole thing at once, then you create a huge problem in the bigger system. But if there's a plan to
Yeah.
do, you know, 10,000 acres here, 10,000 acres there, and then, you know, if you do it all at once, then it would probably dry up the entire system.
So what I chose to do was focus on our business, which is water infrastructure. So how do we go about protecting the water infrastructure? That gives us some direction instead of just looking all over the forest. If that's a small part to help in that bigger picture that you're talking about, great, we feel like we've accomplished something that's good. And I think my point that I made before is we're just gonna have to figure out how to live with some of those post-fire conditions that never got treated. You know, how do you do that? How do you have a plan in place if it happens? And what can you do ahead of time, in the areas where you actually can get out and do something on the ground that'll do some good? So it's tough. It's a wicked problem, as they say. Yeah.
So did you guys, did Forest Service do your NEPA, or did you get someone third party to do it?
We hired the same consultant who's doing the analysis to come up with our proposed action, NEPA. Forest Service in our area, they don't have the capacity right now to move very quickly. And I have a deadline on when I can use that co-swap money, so I need to get out on the ground next year and start doing something.
So you're using my co-swap money to do the NEPA?
No, the NEPA stuff will come from Upper Yampa, and then the promise I made to the co-swap folks was 100% of your money is gonna go to mitigation efforts on the ground. We'll take care of the permitting and everything else.
How quickly were they able to do NEPA on 33,000 acres?
I don't know yet, we're just starting.
Okay.
I'll let you know when we're done. Yeah, that is actually the $1 million question.
Any other questions here in the room? Any questions from anyone online? Hearing none. Well, thanks, Andy. That was a great job for 42 hours notice.
Yeah, and anyone, please, give me a call if you wanna know more about what we're doing. There's a lot more to this.
Okay, so that moves us down to action items. Rebecca, social and water rights and letter of support. Do you just have the one
Just the one slide.
for your update?
Yeah,
Cause I have it separated. Are you good with that or?
yeah, that's just fine. I can focus on the letter of support now.
Okay, perfect.
You guys mind? It's just wait and
I got out of there tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
20, if you go up to the top, that's the 2024, 09, 11. Yeah.
This one.
Yep.
Okay.
And the second slide, looking at this one.
Is it
So-
more than this? Oh,
Yeah, just the,
no. Oh, no. Huh, okay.
No, you're on it, you just need to
That
put
was
it
one
at
page.
the
that-
bottom of, that bottom slide of the two.
Where
There you go, you're there.
Yeah. I
Then
got
you
it.
can just
That's,
scroll down instead of, don't hit that, and yeah, there you go. And zoom in, you know,
I don't know, it's
scroll down just a little bit.
Oh, geez.
There you go.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
oh, I'm talking about it anyway. Okay. So you guys all have heard a lot about, the River District's really big project at the moment, which is preserving the Shoshone water right on the main stem of the Colorado. Always happy to answer questions, about that and talk about it. Essentially, we're trying to protect that historical, 1408 PFS water right flowing west in perpetuity. And we have done pretty well with our funding. As you guys know, it's a $99 million purchase price. We think that's a pretty good deal, but of course, is a lot of money. And so, we are raising funds for that, and we're up to about $56 million right now of the 99. So we're feeling pretty good. We have $20 million from our community funding partnership, $20 million from projects bill that the CWCB board unanimously approved. And we've raised about $16 million from local Western Slope, Colorado main stem entities, like Grand County and Grand Valley, water users and others. And we are looking at that B2E bucket funding that was mentioned earlier for a $40 million ask. And that application is due October 14th. And I'm here to humbly ask you guys place a roundtable for a letter of support for that funding. You know, while we know that it's not a project that directly impacts the Amplewood Green Basin, we very much feel that protecting water rights and water flowing west anywhere in the western slope of 15 counties that we represent is beneficial to all of us. And we're hoping that you guys can provide a letter of support for us in that funding request for the Bureau of Reclamation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Do you have a draft?
Yes, I did provide a draft.
I'm just now looking for it. I thought it was out there on the drive, but I don't think it is.
And I can send that again.
No, I got it.
Steve, it'd be great if you could send that to all of us. Those of us on this board that are here representing a bigger organization with its own governing body might need to run that letter by our board of directors or whomever before we give it the thumbs up.
No. So typically how that works is they'll submit a letter of support, we'll vote on it, and then we oftentimes change it to make sure that we, like our base, that it supports our base implementation plan.
Great, yeah, if I could give it. Great. I will put it in front of my board next week. We have a board meeting a week from today.
Can you help me with the process a little bit? Did this go through the grant committee? I know you're not asking for money, you're asking for a letter of support, but 40 million bucks is a big statement. Has that gone through the grant
So-
committee's
So,
review?
so we went, I thought we wrote a letter of support for the water plan. What did we wrote? We've seen this numerous times at this roundtable, the presentation. This letter of support did not go through the grants committee. But they made presentations on this project to this board. So they're not asking for grant for us to do anything other than provide a right of support.
And if I might, Steve, the letter of support process can go one of two ways. It can go through the grants committee first, if there's a meeting scheduled. As you might remember, our last meeting was several months ago, and our next meeting is until October 9th. The other process it can go through is directly to the Basin Roundtable with the letter of support. So that's where we're at tonight. That's why the grants committee did it.
I just loaded a file called 2024 BOR letter and support in that on the drive. Can you guys find that? You can bring it up.
What does this do to the funding and the rest of that line item, the BU2?
The B2B.
Yeah, where are you sit, what is, what's the impact of this request on that?
You know, it's not my funding bucket. I'm not sure how much total that the.
It's
Bureau
like,
probably
go back
has
to
in
the
that
top.
bucket.
It's like, oh,
Uh,
it starts 2024 BOR letter. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah,
I had a question. I think there's a question sort of out there about what this means for the Ample White Green. We happen to have a board member from the River District in our attendance. I think Mr. Monger is still a representative of Brown County. Maybe Doug could give us a couple of words on this item and its importance to the Ample White Green Basin.
We blow that up a little bit. Sally or Kristen, who's our.
I don't know if Doug's still there.
Doug, are you still with us?
Yep, so I'm here. So thanks, Steve. So thanks, Andy. So yeah, I'm supportive of this project. And again, we've had discussions amongst the board about allocating $20 million out of the River District funds out of the two 7A projects, and then going directly to this thing and the rest. And we've been promised that we're going to get made whole at a later point in time. So I think this is a great thing, and I think that we need to support this thing because of the fact that if we don't do this, the water's going to go back over on the eastern slope, and it'll be taken out from there. So I think we ought to support this project, and I've been supporting it. It has no effect to the Ample White Green. Probably puts a bigger target on the Ample White Green for future water diversions. But at the same point in time, I think it's good that we send more water down the river, and otherwise we're going to be allocated how much less water that we can use up in the Yampa to make the compact whole. So I think this is a good thing, and I would support it. And I've been supporting it all along. And I think it's just the right thing to do, and we'll play games in the sandbox here, and we'll go from there.
Thanks for showing that support. The Round County Board of County Commissioners have talked about this quite a bit as well. And, you'll see on the funding list, there are a number of our peer communities. Other counties are putting in a significant amount of money. So I would say, as far as the letter goes, I think it's kind of a no-brainer, and I'm just relieved that we're not getting requests for purchase.
I'm sorry.
Where the money comes from the Bureau of Reclamation.
It's from the Inflation Reduction Act. That's
I think Jeff Rodriguez put up a note that's 450 million. Is that in the chat there? Is that what I saw?
That's the right number, 450.
So in the past, when we approved a letter of support, most of the time we've had the language we looked at. I'm with Sonia, this isn't a very hard thing to think through. Doesn't take much to connect the dots between losing the Shoshone River right and the extra pressure on us at some point down the road. So it seems to me that it's not very hard to decide that we need to do this, but the deadline is before the next roundtable meeting. So how do you wanna?
The verbiage is up there. If they
We
could just
cannot
make
read
it,
that.
if they could just make it a little bigger,
I said, why don't you read it?
I can read you
There you
that.
go. There we
That
go.
helps. Oh, do it a couple more times.
You want me to read it?
No, that's okay.
Okay, I didn't read it.
Well, I mean, maybe others, I don't.
I think you guys have all been watching the news too, and this thing is far from over. We now have Northern Water deciding they're gonna contest the thing. So Northern Water wants to make sure that they still have an opportunity to drag some more water, Colorado River water over the divide. So I don't know. So I think we need to get on board here and try to figure out how we can support this. And again, probably Director Gray and myself, and we've had long discussions about the fact that really this isn't our part of ours. In fact, we've been concerned about, we spend a lot of time at the River District on the main stem and not so much on us. And we've been pressuring our executive director to make sure we get out and see the rest of the West Slope, includes us. So, but anyhow, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Procedural question on this one, do you authorize the chair to sign off on a final language for a letter? I mean, I have a feeling that trying to read this and digest it and wordsmith.
That's what we've done. We've essentially shown the language. Sometimes we don't get the draft in time to like put our basic implementation language in there on other letters. So we're all have typically addressed what we thought we needed in the letter. So you can see that the only thing I wasn't sure how the approval would go tonight, but I'll fix that, and then the letter will probably go really as is.
Yeah, I mean, when I just was thinking back on the strong support that our voters showed for the River District 4 years ago, with that 7A measure, the mayor would be. So, I just think that I would like to take this letter and take it back to the Brown County for letter of support for the county as well.
How many roundtables did you guys have for letter support spring?
You guys are the first. Jonathan, will be next week, I believe, and that was Colorado.
Will you do anything on the other side just so you can look at it?
How do you think that's gonna go?
I think you ought to ask, my God, I'll go with you, just watch. I'll show you.
Surprise.
We've got Ken.
So I guess, Steve, all we really need is a process for whatever comments we have to get back from members. Maybe you want to go over that with Jeff. We can approve by email. We can make a motion now that says, in concept, we support, and there may be final edits required, and I don't know, maybe Jeff would be a little help us there.
What's the deadline on this?
The application deadline for the grant is October 14th.
So we have some time, so I can put a draft out, send it to the members and see what language comes back. I'll put a time limit for that language to go back so we can complete this and get it to Rebecca in a timely fashion.
Sure.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Hey, Steve, Ken's got his hand raised.
Ken?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the Garfield County representative, Garfield County is the single largest local government contributor to this effort with a contribution of $3 million. I think this is easily the most significant water right acquisition probably in our lifetimes, and it's certainly one that bolsters the long-term strength and health of the Colorado River system here on Western Slope. And for that reason, I would like to offer the motion to approve this letter in concept, and that edits need to be submitted back to our chair no later than the 1st of October. And without hearing any significant edits, that this is submitted on behalf of the Yampa White Green Basin Roundtable.
Second.
Who seconded Sonia? Okay. So Kevin, Sonia. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just reiterate that real quick. What are we gonna do? The motion.
So the motion is that we would support sending a letter of support to, or approve sending a letter of support to the Bureau of Reclamation for Chojo Falls water purchase.
Okay.
That's the motion. We will, how we're gonna go about this is we'll support the motion if we choose to, support the motion. Which will authorize the letter of support. I'll draft it out, send it out, we'll put it on October 1st as the time frame to get comments back. Based on that, I'll put the final touches on it, sign it, and send it to Rebecca.
Perfect.
And leave out the thing.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. We've had further discussion. Anybody online have any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve sending a letter of support to the Bureau of Reclamation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. So motion passes unanimously. Division of Water Resources, Aaron, are you still with us?
I am. Thank you, Steve. I'll just give a quick update on everything. Update on the measurement rules. We continue to work really hard and we've been working hard this summer. All the water commissioners have been out doing inventories on the structures to see who's in compliance and who's not. We've been focusing primarily at first on the structures that are active where we've maintained records of those structures. And now we're moving on to those structures that are active where we historically have not maintained records. So smaller ponds and diversions. So a lot of work being done there by our water commissioners. Also, our measurement rule coordinator has developed the forms that were required in the rules, and those forms are now available on our website. The forms are the approval of the measurement method specifically, and absolutely, if you are interested in using an alternative measurement method, that form needs to be used. We've also have on there the measurement rule variance request and then the notice of structure inactivation. So those forms are available on our website. Also, in relation to the measurement rules, we are going to hold one more public meeting at the request of several water users. That public meeting is going to be on September 18th at 5:30, and it's going to be at our office here at the U.S. Forest Service building in our main conference room there. Moving on to other things, nice cool August and even some rains, but that didn't stop the river flows from dropping. And we have 3 calls that I want to talk about, river calls that I want to talk about just briefly, only because they're CWCB in-stream flow calls. We have a call on Slater Creek, which is a new call we're not accustomed to. And then the Bear River, actually, the Bear River is accustomed to irrigation calls, but right now we have a call for the CWCB in-stream flow on the Bear River. And then our normal, what's become a very common, usual call we have on the Elk River right now. Other than that, we just have a few other irrigation calls still in place here in Division 6. Of other note, flows did, like I said, cool August, some rain, flows still dropped. The flows on the Yampa River at Maybell have dropped significantly, and our target flow for this year was set at 134 CFS. The flows have dropped below 134. So with that, the recovery program started a release of 50 CFS late last week. I think that happened on Friday. And then starting tomorrow, they're going to increase that to 70 CFS. One other thing of note, and I'll just make a plug, and I probably should have had you put this down under the announcements, but I'll go ahead and make this announcement now. The Division of Water Resources, or I'll say a group of the Division of Water Resources many years ago, started a group called the Colorado Water Officials Association, CWOA. And that association is comprised of primarily water commissioners, but a lot of DWR personnel. And every year we hold a conference, that CWA holds a conference, and it moves around the state. So every 8 years it comes back to us. It's been longer than 8 years for us because in COVID we skipped having the meeting for at least 2 years. But anyway, the CWA conference is here in Steamboat. It's going to be on October 3rd and 4th, and we just opened it up for public registration. I believe it was just on the 9th. So just this week we opened it up for public registration. And if anybody's interested in finding out more about that and what our conference is going to look like, I'm certainly happy to provide Steve with that web link where all the information about this conference is. So you're certainly invited to come to that. And Steve, that's all I have.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Erin? Yeah, Sonia?
Erin and Sonia, is Division 6 fully staffed?
No, we're not. A couple things. And Eamon O'Toole will be interested in this. Erin Roden left. She was the water commissioner in Little Elk Snake and Green River Basin. She left, but we were able to quickly turn around and get that position filled. She left, her last day was August 30th, and we were able to fill it with our temp. I may have told you guys we hired a temp to help with our measurement rules. He ended up being selected for this permanent position. His name is Destin Gerhard, and he starts officially in that position on September 16th. We still have a position vacant in the North Platte Basin. That has been vacant since COVID, unfortunately, and we cannot seem to get that filled. We did advertise for that position. It closed on Monday. I had one candidate, and we are going to interview that candidate. So we'll see if we have any luck with that one. And then lastly, Sonia, and unfortunately, I'll go ahead and announce to this group that Mindy Figueroa has given her resignation. And so that position will be vacant starting October 1st. And we've already started the process to try to refill that position. So a very unfortunate departure for us because Mindy was wonderful water commissioner in the headwaters of the Yampa. So yeah, there we are. That's where we're at, Sonia.
Any other questions for Erin in the room or online?
So quick comment, Erin. So this is Doug. So yeah, that's too bad that Erin has decided to leave you. So she was very invigorating and instrumental in moving things along. So I'm sorry to hear that, and especially for the Upper Yampas interaction with her and that as well. So sorry to see her leave. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Doug.
I agree with what Doug said. I'm really gonna miss Erin. She was great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
All right. Colorado River District update. Rebecca, you're on again. Can you bring the slide back up?
It's not September 5th.
Yep, same one. It's the first to finish. All right, well, thanks for the opportunity to give a quick update. As you guys know, we've been pretty busy at the River District, which is Show Me, but we also have our annual water seminar coming up next week already, which is great. For those of you that got to meet my mom in July, our last Basin Roundtable, my dad might be at this one. bringing all the family members to water event. So we're really looking forward to this next week. If you're not tired of hearing about Shoshone yet, of course, we're gonna be having a presentation on that. But we also have the state climatologist coming in to give an overview of the Big River and some climate outlooks, as well as a couple of ag presentations. Robert Cicada will be on one of our panels. Also bringing in someone from the Family Farm Alliance and hearing from the Sonoran Institute on some municipal aspect of water provider challenges and kinds of drought and water scarcity. It's going to be really great. There is a virtual attendance, so if you can't be there in person, you can register for that. We also have a board meeting coming up in October that you can also listen into. It is public. And we'll have a community funding partnership, staff recommendations to the board to fund Sheriff Reservoir out of the Yampa Basin. So that will be on our agenda. I don't think we have any other Yampa Green grant funding requests at the moment. So those Sheriff Reservoir. Another thing that we're following right now that's of particular interest and note to us is that I think Amy mentioned it earlier, the system conservation pilot program for next year is in the legislature at the federal level, going through that authorization. An interesting thing coming out of the UCRC is they are exploring water conservation credit. So they're looking into finding a way to give the upper basin credit for that water instead of just letting it go downstream and not really counting it. That's something that we've been asking for in system conservation and see it as a real positive. Even if, you know, in general, this program is not something that we're totally on board with. We see that as a positive. So something that we're following and I'd like to point out. On another level, we're following the Judge and Fill stakeholder engagement sessions have started as of last week. So I gave a presentation in July on that. There's going to be about a year-long process on the stakeholder engagement sessions to develop the regulation for Judge and Fill. And I get to sit in on those with the water quality person. So if you have concerns or questions or comments, we're always happy to hear those as we're going to be actively engaged. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Rebecca?
Yeah.
Do you know what the total ask from the town of Oak Creek is for a Sheriff Reservoir, you guys?
I just asked Melissa this today. She said, staff is recommending full funding of $232,000.
Thank you.
So Jeff didn't cover it in his update, but we are getting, there was a request, which is the Dredge and Fill folks couldn't get here. JoJo Law or was gonna come up and talk to us about that, which is the reason Andy got the short notice. We thought we were gonna have them at our September meeting. They're certainly gonna try to collect input from us probably at the November meeting if we can fit them in. And then they'll be back in the spring with, like, I guess more of that kind of a plan of action and try to get some final input from us.
Don't they have some public output meetings coming up forward between now and isn't that right?
Yeah, they just had their first one last week and they'll have at least 3 more for the end of the year and more to come next year. And yeah, those are open to the public, anybody.
Yeah, but they're trying to find time at the round tables before the end of this year to gather some input. Okay, any questions for Rebecca? Online, any questions? Okay, hearing none. Jeff, you're up, Big River.
Great, thanks. Can you find me, Sally?
Yeah, what do you need up here?
It's the BRT update. That would be the first part of her name there.
there's kind of four things in the Big River Committee IBCC update for today. The first was an update on negotiations, and Amy kind of covered that off. I think we're still in a time frame when we're not gonna get a lot of public data about what's going on at the bureau level between the upper and lower divisions. There's the people that I've talked to who always want to remain nameless, have kind of given us an indication that the upper division and the lower division in the negotiations for operations going forward are still pretty far apart. That's not a shock, I'm sure, to the roundtable members. It seems like I sent it to you, Sally. It was.
Oh, that's right,
It was
yeah.
the email.
Sorry.
I see it. So I think one of the biggest things in gaps, issues and the sticking points that I've heard from people so far is the idea that the lower division still believes they're still sort of wedded to the idea that under any circumstances, they're entitled to 8.23 million acre feet. That's their 7.5 million plus the 3/4 to meet the Mexico Treaty. And so, throughout, the upper division has kind of contended that we're sharing the river. And they've said, yes, we are sharing the river as long as we get 8.23 million acre feet, irrespective of what the total flow is. That's gonna be a big sticking point here. Have this, if I don't
I'm
see
just
it.
trying to, yeah,
down.
I'm having some problems. Hold on.
Okay.
My screen share. Try it again.
There we go. Perfect. It used to say right here, there was a little banner that said, the Steamboat Dog Trial is Saturday and Sunday at the rodeo grounds in Steamboat. Benefit for Beverly Hills, Roanoke County, please show me, it said that right there, I don't know what happened. Okay, so negotiations update, you wanna go down one, I think we've more or less covered that. The one thing just to remind you, Amy told us that the upper division can't really dig in too much until we see what the modeling of the lower division proposals look like. But we're gonna talk about hydrology in just a second. Maybe I'll give you a few more ideas about that. So Sal, you wanna get the next one there? Can you launch, by the way, I don't remember how Steve got you to do it, but if you click with you right there, that'll launch the thing, or it should.
Yeah, it's enable my editing.
Okay. So while she's doing that, we had the idea that at the Big River that we should make a hydrology update a regular feature of the meetings. We're gonna try to be pretty brief. That's not my best thing, as you know, but it seems to us that everybody on the roundtable and who listens to roundtable meetings, our visitors and friends, should have a bi-monthly sort of snapshot of these four ideas. What are we putting into Powell? What's being released? What is Powell's elevation? And what is Lake Mead's elevation? So we're gonna try to get this format probably isn't that. Ken and I asked Steve for 20 minutes. We've got some IBCC things that he wants to talk about as well. But we'll get it down to a pretty brief thing, but that's sort of the main things we think everybody ought to kind of have in their mind just once every 2 months. Okay, so can you go ahead, Sally, for the next slide? So here's a little overview of the CRISPA facilities. You can see the three main reservoirs there. Flaming Gorge is 87% full, Blue Mesa 72, Navajo 68. Lake Powell's just about 40% full right now. So that just gives you a snapshot. Okay, click. The inflow to Lake Powell, what are we putting in for the water year 24, which ends at the end of this month? We're projecting 7.9 million acre feet. We put in about 7.85 already, so that's almost certain that we'll meet that projection. Lake Powell releases planned for water year 24 was the release of 7.48 million acre feet. That's kind of that mid-tier release, and it's based on the discussion that Amy gave you, so. Bureau's holding to that 7.48 million acre feet release. Actually, in August, it was at 7.04, but I'm sure that they'll meet it. That's the same release volume planned for water year 25. So what that means is that a 10-year average flow basis, the water going past Leaf Area, Arizona, has been an average of 8.6 million acre feet. Next couple of years, it's going to be less than 8 million. But the 10-year average 8.6. Anybody want to take a guess at the 30-year average at Leaf Area over the last 30 years? At average, anybody? Bill, go ahead. 10? Not quite, 9.6 million acre feet. So 30 years, 9.6, 10 years, 8.6, 2 years, 7.9 something. Maybe that's a trend. Okay, go to the next slide then. So if we look at Powell overview, Powell elevation overview, on the 9th of September, 3580, well above the 3525 critical infrastructure mark. So that's good. It's also good that it's up about 6.6 feet since last year. If you look at this green line, these graphs are maybe a little bit hard to see, but the green line is the most probable inflow to Powell. So if we hit that 7.94 or something close to that, Powell will increase in elevation by another 10 feet at this time next year. So that's good. That's, I think, good news. 6.5 feet this year, another 10 feet or so next year, most probably. Now, in contrast, when we look at Meade, go ahead to the next slide, Sally. Lake Meade was at 1,063, almost 1,064 on the next day. That is down 2 feet from the same time last year. That based again on that 7.48 million acre feet inflow. If you follow that same line for next year for water year 25, and Amy told us, and we already knew the release was going to be another 7.48, that will probably decrease Meade's elevation by another 4 feet. So we're putting in about 7.5 million acre feet, which is the compact requirement, but Meade's elevation continues to decline. I don't think you have to be a mathematical genius to figure out that they are continuing to overuse in the lower basin. That's just about the only thing that can mean. Amen.
What's the minimum that needs to go by at least, Barry?
The compact says that we will do nothing to cause less than 7.5 million acre feet go past the area. But we contend, of course, in the upper basin, that doesn't mean that 7.5 million acre feet must go by every year. If there's only 12 million acre feet to divide, maybe we can't but we can't do anything to cause less than that to go by. That's what the compact says.
And is it constantly based on the 10-year average?
And it's on a 10-year rolling average. That's correct. Okay. So if you hit the next slide, just the takeaways from this, I think, are the system is stable. We feel good. Powell's going up, but we're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. Meade is not continuing to rise. The downward trend in available water resources is definitely continuing. 30 years to 10 years. You can say, well, 2 years doesn't make a trend, and you're right. But from 30 years ago, we were putting 9.6 million acre feet into that thing. Now we're putting 8.6, now we're putting less than 8. So that I think the entire river basin needs to acknowledge that we have less water to work with. It doesn't make sense to think we don't. Those conservation measures, we didn't spend a lot of time on that, but Amy gave me a slide that shows all of the conservation that's been implemented in the lower division over the last 2 years, based on the Bureau's negotiated settlement with them between the two operating agreements. Those conservation measures are interesting, but they're not adequate. They're not the long-term solution. And in fact, you heard, Amy reference the, one of the biggest chunks of the California conservation was about 450,000 feet of defined as ICS, intentionally created surplus. That is the kind of water that the Bureau allows people to bank up, but use later. So it isn't permanent conservation. About 450,000 acre feet of about 1.17 million that were conserved. So over, something like 40% isn't even permanent conservation. So I think the numbers say there's more work to be done to keep the system out of trouble.
Not on our part. Not on our part.
Yeah,
We're doing
That's-
our part now.
share the pain.
That's right.
Well, we're overusing in Edition 5, every time there's free river conditions by 87,000 acre feet. We're gonna talk about that just in a second. Okay, this is like, look, I know you guys get tired of me. And who doesn't? I'm always grinding and nagging and saying that things are terrible. Yeah, Andy.
Hey, if we go back to your, ambition to give us updates on the flows, if you say bi-monthly or something like that. I think it would be helpful for this basin roundtable to understand where the Yampa White Green fits in that context. If there's a way for you to put into that
Where
report,
the Yampa fits in,
how much
that's an
flow
excellent
is
suggestion.
being
That's
contributed
really
out
good.
of the Yampa
I don't-
White Green Basin in those.
Yeah, I don't know. We might be able to do it. I hope we can.
Amy's slide she put up earlier shows us at 17% of the 9.3 million acre feet flowing off of her cartoon.
Yeah.
So it might be nice to know how much we're contributing.
Can you just, there you go. Whoops, okay, back up, couple more. One more, there you go. So, yeah, now forward. So to this last point, when I was, I'm sorry, but here's the thing, people. The ongoing systemic operational context in the Bureau of Reclamation does not favor us. Right, there are day-to-day things, month-to-month things, big things that happen in the operation of the Colorado River Basin that are not in the upper divisions. So we can talk more about them. Some of them are small, some of them are big. But what it means to me is we cannot take our eyes off this thing. As we negotiate the 2026 operating guidelines, the post-2026 operating guidelines, nothing is better. We have got to keep our eye on this ball. We got to support what Becky Mitchell and Amy Ostocker do however we can. Because left to itself, the lever is tilted in the wrong direction. Okay, next. End show, yeah, thank you, we should, good. Okay, Amy talked a little bit about this study, and I don't know how much more we need to do. How much time have I used? 10 minutes or so?
Probably 12 or 13 minutes.
Okay, so let's go, the loophole, this is one of those studies, you guys, that, sometimes scientific studies go, okay, let's gather up all the evidence, let's look at the facts, let's analyze, and we'll decide what the conclusion should be. And then there are those studies that say, I think this is true and I'm approving. And that's what this is. This is some people thinking that an idea was true and proving. There are quotes in the Newsweek article that cite the study. There was another publication that picked up the study and made their own article. They're not as widely read as Newsweek. I think the big thing about that message is that it talks in terms that the person in the street probably gets pretty shocked by billions of gallons. This guy, the Newsweek article says that our mistaken interpretation, our badly constructed water law results in the loss of billions of gallons. Come on. You know what a billion gallons are? Coyote Creek Ranch is a tiny little ranch, less than 1,100 acres. tiny little corner of northwest Colorado. If it rains a half an inch at my ranch, it's 500 million gallons. An acre foot is 326,500 gallons. A billion gallons of water in the context of Lake Powell, come on. But it's the tone of the message, right? And so I'm not sure how much time the state needs to spend refuting this thing. You know, this is a classic case of the story coming out wrong on page 1 and the retraction printed on page 8. And how much traction are we gonna get from refuting this? Now, maybe we need to. Steve made the point in the committee that Colorado's getting a black eye. There's no question that we are. So maybe we need to go to a certain distance, but I don't think that's really the point. For me, and I think for a lot of people at the Big River, the point is, we've got to get on the other side of this kind of story. We've got to get ahead of these things and make our own message more clear, right? We can't be on the defensive all the time. The lower division is winning the misinformation war here. Okay, so anybody have questions or comments about this? Have you had a chance to read it, look at it? Any other ideas or thoughts on that? I think we have to work on our message. That's my view.
If you go to on the White Green page, if you go to the executive committee meeting button, you'll find the Newsweek, link to the Newsweek article, and you'll find this 8 or 9 page study that was done. We'll call it a study.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask Ken to kind of be front and center here. Just a little wrap up on and a little revisiting of what I thought was maybe not such a great job of characterizing from the IBCC, the low and no regrets 2.0 idea. Ken, you want to take it?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. As usual, Jeff goes above and beyond the call of duty to put everything into the slides and give you a thorough update from the Big River Committee and the IBCC. Thank you, Jeff. Probably the key theme that we're working on right now from the IBCC is this communication between the roundtables and the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And we think the IBCC has an important role to play with that the C9 summits, both last year and again this year, getting longer and with more content are really important examples of that. But we've decided that we really probably want to focus in on a document that was first done in 2013 by Becky Mitchell called the No and Low Regrets document, which led to our first state water plan. Well, this is the No and Low Regrets 2.0. So we're taking a lot of the work that was done previously last year by the Colorado River Drought Task Force. Thanks to Mike and Jackie for representing us on that. But those items and others that are all relevant to statewide issues regarding water, those are the types of projects that we want to put into this basket that we have called the No and Low Regrets. Exactly how we're going to use that is one of the main reasons that we're going to show up at the C9 Summit and talk about what those items look like. What do we want to focus on to give good grassroots perspective from these 9 roundtables to the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And there's genuine interest from the board members at the Colorado Water Conservation Board. They want to hear more from us. And so that's why we're trying to use this as a point of focus is this No and Low Regrets 2.0 effort. So we still have at least 4 slots available for opportunities for members in this roundtable to attend that have not yet to date signed up. Now, there's the agenda. The first day is some tours and a big dinner and an award ceremony at the end of the first day. The second day, we're going to talk a lot about agriculture and drought resilience planning. We have a series of, we'll have a breakout workshop on drought resilience. We have some concurrent sessions afterwards, roundtable best practices, talk about forest landscapes, and then just a new generation in water, along with, talking about turf replacement, probably a topic that's not quite as important to the Western Slope and up here in the Northwest Colorado, but very relevant in a lot of the eastern part of the state. The afternoon concludes with just some conversations with the state engineer and just how we can better work with each other, and finishing with a presentation on the Colorado River. So there's good content and an opportunity to meet your peers from around the state and to learn more about what works well in other roundtables and how we can be more than just a group that hands out grant funds to applicants on projects. So that's my pitch on, please take a look at your calendar. The worst things will happen to you than staying in Crested Butte for a couple of nights and getting fed and getting a chance to mix with your peers. That's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Ken, would you say that it's fair to say that the no and low regrets 2.0 idea is about finding low-hanging fruit kinds of projects that will improve sharing between Roundtable, IBCC, and CWCB? Is that a fair statement?
Well stated, Jeff. Thank you.
So that's one of the key topics to flesh out at the C9 and beyond. Okay. Any other questions at all about that or about the Steamboat Dog Trail on Saturday and Sunday?
You may have left it there.
Okay. All right,
Apologize if we exceeded our time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, it was the dog track that ran me over. Okay, Sally, Hippo,
Yeah, we've got Peppo coming up here. Hold on a second, let me, get everything going. Okay, so for Peppo, some of the things we've been talking about, we have for our Peppo financials for our grants, we have probably till the end of November or October to finish our Peppo grant. We will find out about that from Jeff. But we're on track to pretty much use up all of our money once we get the story map billing. So we're on good track for that, and just need your bills for the committee. Okay. As we are the WCB grant, we have until December 31st, and right now we have 9,000 in that amount remaining, and we're on track with website and basin roundtable expenses to pretty much use that up too. So we're just on track for our budgets. Kristen and Bill updated us on the story map. And I'm going to send out an email to everybody with what Bill has kind of put together about our 5 different
tabs, and we'd love some feedback from you about how we're gonna break those up, and that will be in his email. So be expecting an email about the story map. I think in November, they're gonna have a little bit more to share with us about they're fleshing things out, so we'll have more work there. I've done a couple print ads, and I will show some of those to you guys. We haven't done print ads in quite some time, so I came up with two different kinds, two totally different styles. This one I based off of what the Rio Grande's doing. No, this is the Gunnison. This was similar to one of their ads. So I was just trying to kind of be consistent. This is White River.
Yeah, it's got a White River background.
Yep, that's a better one. Another one I did was, well, no, I didn't submit that one. This was a different style I did. This was from the South Platte. This is what Jeff was talking about, putting together that infographic. I kind of used what some of the water was part of that infographic. I took it apart, made it for the Yampa White Green Basin. So some of the numbers are different. But I thought they were just a little more colorful, a little different than what we've been used to. You guys, so remember what we've been used to, the brown and the blue ads. So these are running now through September. I don't know if has anyone seen any of these in the paper? Yeah. And how about the radio ads? Has anyone heard? I'm listening to the radio, so those are all running. Feel free to let me know what you guys think of them. They're two totally different ads. So we'll run these next year and try and come up with some new ones this winter. But we just wanted to start with something a little new. Let's see. For the canopy, hasn't gone out a whole lot this summer. So next week I'll be at the Upper Yampa Youth Fest. But the canopy, we have weights now for both canopies. So got those here tonight. So I'd love to have someone take those wherever the canopy is. Maybe talk to Steve about it. But
Does Chuck have the canopy? You don't have.
I think Chuck might. But
Anything you wanna give me tonight, Dave?
well, this one, so we have two canopies. One's at my house for the youth fest.
Yep.
And then we have another one, and I think Chuck might have it.
I thought it was in Meeker.
Yeah.
And I
Somebody
thought
has
Chuck
it
said he would store it if it was
Yeah.
in Meeker.
I think
But
it's
I don't
in-
know if it ever got to Meeker, actually. I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have the pamphlets and stuff.
Yeah, I might give you the weights before you leave tonight, but maybe not. But anyway, I've got the weights.
If you want the ways to go to Youth Water Festival, I'll take it.
I'm going to the Water
Okay.
Festival. I'm actually gonna be there. It's just, they need to go to Meeker. I bought two sets of weights. because
Okay,
we
we
have
can
two
take,
cameras.
I will not have a place to store them, so somebody needs.
We
to
won't
get
worry about it. It's not gonna go out this fall anyway, probably, so unless there's someone else who wants, there's an event, someone wants to use it. I also made for the canopy, when we set it up, a piece of paper with a QR code that we can just set up so people can scan the QR code and it will automatically register them for a newsletter. That way they can just do that while we're talking. Let's see.
Al said the other canopy is in Meeker.
Okay, yep, in Meeker, sounds good. Upcoming events, we have the Yampa Fall Festival, September 22nd, and then the Upper Yampa Youth Festival, the 25th. As far as updates for the Ag Alliance, we have a new executive director. Amber Sachs Pugalis, and she started, and I'm probably saying her name wrong, yesterday, and we're really excited to have her on, so that's the news from the Ag Alliance. Let's see, what else am I missing? Ken, anything?
No, Sally, I
I
think
can
you did a
eye
good
all
job.
our website, updates here in a second, but as far as Pepo,
Any other suggestions that anyone has on newspaper ad content, radio topics, anything like that, somebody, I mean, and it may not occur to you immediately, but you may be listening to one of our ads and go, well, why haven't we done an ad on some other topic that you have? We very much want to hear back from you. Please let Sally and I know.
please do. I'll take any photos you guys have for the website. I'm using what I took for the July 11th field trip on my own camera, so for the website. So if you have any photos to give me, that'd be great. And let's see,
I just, well, we're,
I don't have any of, yeah, Jeff can submit some soon, or of just scenery that you want to see on the website.
Okay, Alden's got his hand up. Alden?
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everyone. I did send over a bunch of photos earlier this year. We have a professional photographer in town here who has been all over the Yampa White Green Basin. His name is Michael Mullenberg, I believe. And he is just a freelance photographer, but I've sent a crazy number to you guys, and I haven't seen any one of them. If you need more, let me know. He's given us permission to utilize his photos. But I know he's got a lot of them from the top of the flat tops all the way down to the headwaters or to the head of the canyon lands. So,
Yeah,
the
I
other,
used yours in this one, Alden. That was from one of those that you sent me.
I'm sorry, I don't recognize them because I sent over quite a few. So thank you very much.
Okay, the great picture. Yeah, so just gonna try and mix it up a little bit.
One thing that I've been researching, and I'm going to focus on the White River here primarily, is and a little bit on the state. And I don't have the numbers quite exact, so I'm not going to be 100% accurate on them. So within the state of Colorado, we've lost several thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of agricultural land. In the White River Basin alone, since 2017 to 2022, we've got 7,000 plus acres of USDA prime soils or agricultural land that's no longer in production. I have not done anything where I've researched into the Yampa Basin, Moffat, or Routt County yet. I have not looked into that. But for our PEPO, is that something that we want to try to emphasize a little bit more? Because we have, I believe, 2 or 3 items in our 8 measurable goals and outcomes that reference agriculture and the importance of it. And I like the page that you showed there, but we're seeing a decline in agricultural properties. And is there something that PEPO can do to kind of demonstrate that, hey, we're losing this, folks? This is important to our ways of life, customs and cultures, how we've been established, but this is data collected by USDA. So it's tested and that's what's on the system. So in that audit with the most recent was released this year, but the data is from 2022. So just some food for thought. I'd be happy to share the data that I have with you so you can see the actual numbers. But just something that I think is not what I expected to see happen within our region, but it's happening.
So all the Colorado Cattlemen's Land Trust actually keeps track of those numbers, so if PEPO needs some of that information, they have it. Like, I'm almost positive they keep track of that on a yearly basis.
Yeah, we can do a nice graphic like that.
Who at the land trust would you talk to, Mike?
Amber
and I know
Gallups is coming over from the Cattlemen's Land Trust.
Who?
The new director for the Community Ag Alliance.
Yeah.
And we also always need newspaper articles, so if there's something you're passionate about, like that, Alden, November 4th, we're planning on writing an article about the importance of flood irrigation at this point, unless somebody else has or actually, we're not going to, maybe, in the future, in the spring, but, probably for the next one, it'll be about grant outcomes. But if there's something that you're passionate about writing about, please do. We always need articles at the Ag Alliance to have.
Understand.
On
I'm not a writer by trade. I'm a water nerd. So, just.
Yeah.
So,
No, but that suggestion is great for our next project. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right. Thank you for
Tuesday,
sharing your time with me tonight, folks. Thank you.
maybe hold off on the flood irrigation.
Yeah, we're doing that until springish, until
We have
we
our,
talk to you. Yeah.
yeah, our study done, which is
Yep.
awesome.
That's
The
what
other
you're-
thing, going back to the infographic that has the top ends on it,
Mhm.
I guess I'm just questioning, it's showing how Colorado uses its water 86% irrigated ag.
Mhm.
We often talk about, we may divert that, but we don't use it, and that's a little bit misleading.
That was from the state's infographic.
I
So
understand.
that was, yeah.
But do we
That's what
want
they're
to
doing.
perpetuate what I would say is a myth? So I would just ask that we be very careful with that, kind of, because that's that whole messaging, you know. Ag gets the black eye, talking about the whole article, when they divert that water, it's black eye on ag, and yet here we are, and I get it, it's coming from the state.
Mhm.
Ag is using it, not diverting it, and the whole message about how it's actually used. Like, I don't know how we fix that, but I just don't want to perpetuate it. Personally.
It should be a consumptive use number, not a diversion number.
And so how do we fix that at the state? So is that the state?
Well, I think this is what Jeff is talking about, but you know, what they're going to do for our basin soon. This was the South Platte. And it was, yeah, so that's what they're putting out there for us. So I think that's something you tell them
I think. you
at the
follow
C9 and say,
How
yeah.
many pounds of beef, how many pounds of land, how many pounds of alfalfa, all those things that come from 86% of the water, or whatever that real number is.
Yeah, and I understand, but we can't in this kind of a document. I mean, it's just, it's a snapshot.
Mhm.
And so how can we change that messaging from the state? So if it's the state PEPO that's putting it out, I guess I would ask that our PEPO carries the message forward. We would like to see that changed. Let's get more accurate information that we put out there.
We need a simple way to make that talking point work, Kelly.
And I don't know what it is. I
It's
just.
hard. I mean, the print ad has a lot of great information, but it's already pretty complicated
Yes.
for the average guy to read and digest, I think. So, I don't know,
So
it's a
maybe
tall
there's a
order.
percentage of that shows that it returns. If we're gonna say you, I mean, we're saying use, that's not the right language to use. I'll think on it.
When these return flow studies start showing factual information, that's gonna be something you're gonna wanna get out there.
Yes, we
You
plan.
know, the hundreds of thousands of acres of riparian area that's created by irrigation is another thing that we should proactively get out there. So there's lots of ways that we can change the messaging or improve the message. We just haven't
So I guess
collectively made the effort.
bringing attention to it is a big roundtable would be a start. But we're concerned about that. Let's do something to fix it.
Collie, we'll
Okay.
carry that message to the state PEPO meeting, and thank you for your, for that concern that you've expressed. As we're wrapping up the PEPO thing, I just want to do a quick shout out for Sally. I think she's done a heck of a job here in a short period of time. We came up with a whole 4 different new radio ads, and these new print ads are of a completely different quality that I think really help do a better job of connecting with the public at large. So just wanted to shout out and say that good job, Sally, and good job, Kristen. Thank you.
Guys, I think we're gonna wrap up with Peppo, and if it's okay, move on to the grants. Or the website updates that Frank and Steve and I have been talking about lately. And I'll just make this quick since we don't have a whole lot of time, but I wanted to tell you, a little bit what I'm doing and just show you. So, on the Google Drive, we have what's called a project tracker. And basically, this is a document that's only for us, but it has all of our projects that we've taken on with, so I updated this and we have links in here to our Google Drive. It's got all the data you need for the basin asks, project totals, when everything is supposed to be finished. So this is on the Google Drive. And this is what I use to update quite a bit of the website. So that's Project Tracker. So I'm gonna just take you to our website. So a lot of what I did was just trying to clean things up, make them a little more concise, and get rid of some redundancy. So we haven't done a lot of these updates in over 2 years. So most of our projects. So it's been quite a while. So going to the projects page, I'll just show you here. I did update all the in progress. I made 16 new pins for the maps, and you can go on the pins and it gives you a little blurb and it'll tell you the basin ask and the approval dates. I made these tables, three different tables, one for historical projects, completed projects, and projects in progress. The goal was to have these be hyperlinks to our Google Drive, which we've had before, but now with Hive 180, as they changed their process, when I tried to do that, it was going to be a $50 a month upcharge. So that's how some of their pricing has changed. So I decided not to do that. So projects page, we have a map. We have all the projects, who sponsored them, their approvals. And then for everything else, all the other data, I made a little button that will take you to a different page that's not a major tab. But here's every single project, and I made 16 more of these for each project. Here's where we can get to those links that I was trying to hyperlink to. So right now they have applications. When Steve can get to putting some of the reports on the Google Drive, we'll have the 6-month reports and the final reports here also. So take a look. This is the projects page. On the IWMP page, we had a lot of redundant information, so I got rid of that. We had IWMP subcommittee project information. Has been migrated over to the bid page. And
so that's the point you asked me about, Tim. But we moved those, we moved that button over to the base implementation plan page, because they're now all in the BIP database that the state has.
And so here we have this is one of the grandfathered in hyperlinked tables, but here we have tracking monitoring and not tracked. Former
This is all work that Steve, our roundtable chair, provided for us, kind of concluding our work on the IWMP prior to him being elected as your chair. But Steve did a heck of a job going out and really completing this inventory. Thanks, Steve.
So we just really tried to clean up the projects page, make it a little bit more usable and a lot less cluttered. So if you have problems finding anything, let us know. Everything's still there. It just has a different location name, so.
If I may, Sally, one of the main goals for this process was to provide the members and the public information about all of the projects that the grants committee approves. And many times you as a board hear the grants and we grant the money and we don't hear anything back for 2, 3, 4 years. So what we're trying to do is provide an easier way to find those projects, but also make sure that we, as best as we can, keep all the reports on there. So if you want to follow a certain project, you can get the most updated report. And then the last thing, which I think is going to be important, and I'll go back to last meeting, is it's nice to know how projects end and how they turned out. And Mike did a great job of going through the Mayville diversion, if you will, that project. So that's another goal, is to kind of see these grants, not just from approval, but also through the process. And then kind of hopefully, as time permits and as people want to present, give the BRT members an update on how the project turned out with some pictures, some narrative, et cetera. So I also want to echo what Ken said. Sally's done a great job since coming on board, and this process may look easy, but it's pretty cumbersome to go through a website and try to clean it up. And we still have a little bit of work to do, I think, but I think so far so good. If you have any questions or comments, get with me or Sally on.
Did I miss anything?
Nope, I don't think so. The only other thing I'll mention on the grants committee update is, well, two things. As you probably know, the cycle runs such that for 2025, the first meeting will be in October, and then the last meeting ends in April, and then we hear the last grants in May. So there's a little bit of a lag between May and October, but we're now starting to ramp up. So our next meeting is October 9th. And the first round of grants for this first cycle, which is the 2025 cycle, even though we're in 24, is actually, those applications are due on September 18th. And those applications, depending on how many we get, will be heard by the Basin Roundtable at the next meeting, which is November 13th. So just throwing out some dates there. I will give everyone just a quick preview. We have two definitive grants that will be heard at that October 9th meeting. The first one is the Sheriff Dam Rehabilitation Project. And that's a pretty substantial project, about $6 million. They are going to be asking for most likely about $500,000, of which 50 is going to be their initial ask from the local Basin Roundtable and the rest from the state, if you will. The other one that's definitive is the Yapatikas Youth and Community Water Education Grant for the years 2025 and 2027. And their initial ask is right now about $99,000. There's two other small little ag reservoir projects, one southwest of Hayden and one in Rio Blanco County that I'm working with some applicants on. Those might be presented at the at the October 9th meeting, but those are yet to be determined. They're pretty small projects. So we could have the potential of 4 grant proposals in front of the Basin Roundtable board at the November meeting. The last thing I wanted to go through is, Sally, if you want to pull up the status of the grant funding, it's in the it's actually in the packet towards the end.
I wanted to provide just everyone a quick update on the financial status. So if you go to the meeting packet,
For
this meeting,
this meeting, yes, I'm here. See it?
Very last page.
very last page, yep.
Oh, on the meeting packet, got it.
Yeah, the meeting packet. And it's in your actual paper packets too, if you got one of those. While she's finding that, I just wanted to provide a very brief update. This spreadsheet does a nice job of just identifying all the 4 different grant cycles and how much grant money was actually allocated from the Amboy Green Basin Roundtable and what came out of the state fund. And then as you kind of look down towards the end, which we ended with the May cycle, those approvals are actually not official approvals yet. Those will be considered and approved by the CWCB board at their September meeting. But to make a long story short, is our total combined projects, if all projects are approved at this September meeting, was about $146,000. We started the year last October with about $531,000. We're gonna end the year, again, if all these projects get approved next week, with about $385,000 in our reserves. Now, the important thing to remember here is, if you're below $450,000 at the end of the cycle, you're eligible for the total state funding amount of $300,000. So we're below the 450. So we've got $385,000, and if those allocations get approved in September, we'll start the new grant cycle with about $685,000 to be given out, if you will, through grants through this next cycle. So, questions on that? That's kind of where we stand financially with the grants committee and status of the funds.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know historically is, this roundtable or fully exhausted that amount?
Not to my knowledge, but Steve's been around a little bit longer.
We've been pretty close, and we've been like 140,000 or something left in our reserve. We tried, you know, it used to be hit or miss, where they wouldn't fund us some years, so we'll try to keep a reserve. Now it seems that we're pretty confident we're gonna get to 300,000 plus maybe a little bit more. But no, as far as I know, we've never gone to zero, at least not well. I've been on the board.
The other thing that the grants committee will look at the October meeting, we try to do a target number to grant out. To Steve, and to your point, Andy, we don't want to take it down. And usually that's been historically about $400,000. So that provides a little bit of a buffer. We can grant more than the 400,000. It gives us just kind of a starting point of what we might target going into the second. That's the quick grants committee update. Last pitch I'll make is if anyone wants to be part of a great committee that has nothing to do with dogs, we'd be happy to have you. The next meeting is October 9th. Patty Muxworthy, who was the environmental rep, was on the grants committee, so we do have an open position, but it's open to everybody. The link's on the Basin Roundtable website, and I try to get the packet of information out a couple of days prior. So if you're interested in learning about grants and how the process works, I would love to have you come on board and be part of the committee. And thanks again, Sally, for the work on the website. Appreciate it.
And Maddie was on Peppo too, so we need another Peppo.
Yes. Sally, can you pull up, there's a future meeting presentations, there's a Word document, not on the directory. Sure. That takes us down to announcements. Colorado River District Water Seminar, September 20th in Grand Junction. Upper Yampa Youth Festival, September 25th, and C9 Summit Crest Butte on October 1st and 2nd. Those are the only 3 that are on our site. If you guys have things that you'd like to have advertised, events that you'd like to have the membership know about, send those to Sally. We have a place on our, it's actually on the front page, right at the bottom of our homepage. We list those things, so it actually pays to it just gives you a little bit more. We do get a pretty good group of people that passed through.
What do you want me to show again?
Future meeting presentation.
There we go.
Yeah, whatever. Blow that up just a little bit. So I just wanted to talk just briefly in May. I asked you guys, so what is it that the membership would like to be hearing from presentations? And there were 4 ideas that came out of the May meeting. White River return flow study. I talked with Callie earlier, probably can do something after the first of the year, maybe early spring was her thoughts on when that data might be available and there'd be some results from it. The economic impact study for the pumped hydro project. I talked to Jeff Comstock, he thought maybe after the first of the year, probably sometime in the spring of 2025 as well. They're actually working on that as we speak. The Kawa water quality study, I talked with Greg Peterson. Either late spring or early summer was his guess when they would have good data that he would be available. So next year. And then Bear River projects. So we heard a little bit from Andy today. I don't think we'll be hearing from Mindy exactly. But I know Patrick's spending a lot of time on Bear River projects. And whoever fills the gap for Mindy, hopefully we can come up to speed with the GWR side. So, but we don't have a definitive date at this point, but those are the 4 projects. And then can you pay just for them, nope. Yeah, go bigger, we needed to see the bottom. And then Emily Lowell with Upper Yampa sent me an email this week and said the Yampa River Dashboard project, which we funded, is it's not quite final, but I think it's up and working.
A week from today, it'll be working.
Okay.
Yep, it's up and running, and we're gonna pull the curtains off at our board meeting on the week from today, the 18th. It'll be in our board materials. I think it should go out tomorrow. I think there'll be a link there. Emily's got it ready.
Okay.
And everyone in the universe with an internet connection.
But she would like to come show that off to our group if we're interested in it. They sure put a lot of time. There's been a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into that. And then she did mention that the diversion infrastructure improvement project, which is the small grant project that the Upper Yampa's been working through for the last 5 years or more. They're probably that project will probably be complete end of this year, early next year.
Yeah, we have some matching funds from the state, and that's gonna run out. There's a deadline there, and we still got some money to give away, so people have a measuring device or a main point inversion they wanna replace or upgrade, give us a call. We've got a really easy, straightforward grant program to get money out for us, especially the measuring devices. You think you gotta get one in the ground, give us a call.
So anyway, it was kind of a one-off for us. It was the first ever. So Emily was asking if we wanted someone from Upper Yampa, Polly, to maybe come talk to us next spring or early summer on how that program went for them and how it worked. So just wanted to keep that out in front of you guys. Those were projects that you asked for, the upper 4. We can't do a lot with some of them right now, but I think this spring we will be able to bring some of those presentations to the board.
Steve, could I make an announcement?
Yes.
The city of Steamboat Springs has been working in close partnership with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and a lot of NCWCB and a lot of local stakeholders on a multi-benefit river restoration project on the Yampa at the confluence of Walton Creek. You have a lot of shallow ponds and backwatering areas left from gravel mining that has become a real hot spot for northern pike spawning that is contributing to predation on our 4 Colorado native endangered
fish species like throughout the system. And so this project's been on the list for a long time because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Colorado, CPW have really wanted the city to address the issue. It's on city open space. And so we finally, in June, we had worked for several months. We came up with a 60% design. But it also includes 105 acres of riparian and aquatic and wetlands restoration. It'll be additional floodplain connection, biodiversity and habitat, flood protection for downtown Steamboat Springs. And so we have applied to the WCB project bill grants, which is for larger projects. It's actually the same one that provided the 20 million for the sharing water rights. And staff has recommended, CWCB staff is recommending $2 million for the project, and I'll be presenting to that finance committee on Tuesday. And then the CWCB will be talking about that. I think they vote on it, not sure the exact process, in November. And then so it's actually $7.9 million project with like all the contingencies of escalation and everything over the next few years. There's a lot of permitting, as you can imagine. But we'll also be applying to that, the VOR drought resiliency, the bucket 2 funds, as well. Kind of hoping that those two big funding sources will get us most of the way there, and then we will be hitting up everybody locally and regionally. So we just wanted to make you all aware that we're pursuing that, and I'd be happy to come and give a presentation on the project as well.
Okay.
So,
All right, thanks, Julie.
Steve in the chat, Ken says, let's look at LiDAR data collection. I mean, so LiDAR data would be another topic.
Well, and Dave Kanzer can tell us about his weather modification work that they're doing here on the western slope.
Yeah, Dave's on our list as well. Okay, so our next meeting is November 13th at 6 o'clock in this room. As you heard Frank say, and you heard Sally say, we've got lots of room on PEPO and Grants Committee for additional members. The Big River Committee maybe a little short today too, so
Always can use another voice, another idea.
yeah, so we don't stand on procedure here. Our committees are open to any and all that want to attend and participate. So
Yeah, that pizza's not free.
it's not. Anyway, I take a motion to adjourn on it. Doug Davis motions. Do I have a second? Andy will second. Okay, all in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
I actually found that.
Colorado?
Yeah.
But